Hey now, good
Friday afternoon. It's a red Friday.
We've got Chiefs Jets this weekend.
KU in action this weekend.
So much to get to over the next couple of days in the
football world.
And the regular season for Major League Baseball as well. Welcome to 580
I'm
Brendan Dworzynski. He is Dan Lucero. Just the two of us here with you today. As we get ready for a busy football weekend, we would love for you to be a part of the program with us. You can hit us up on the text line 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And you can also check in on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is called Sports on 5. It's 580 Sports Talk. I've had a hell of a day. It is 580 Sports Talk on Twitter. On YouTube. That's where you can find us. You might need to leave the show. This is a disaster already. Comment section's open. Watch the live stream. Hang out with us. We got a bunch to get to over the next couple of hours. We're here until 6 o'clock today. Royals baseball coming up tonight at 7:10. 580 Sports Talk overtime from 6:30, leading you into pregame coverage for today. We will get to our keys to the game for Chiefs versus coming up here in just a matter of moments. We will also, of course, bring you our big Chief picks and our game picks as well. Later on this hour, we'll play a little Change My Mind and Paul Myerberg from USA Today for our big Paul breakdown. Didn't get to talk to Paul yesterday because of the unbelievable marathon games for the Kansas City Royals. Start until after 5 o'clock. We'll talk to Paul today instead. Matt Derrick is going to join us in the 3 o'clock hour today, bottom of the 3 o'clock hour, in fact. We'll make our game pick. Jake got his in, even though he's not here today, so we'll break down our picks for the week. Talk about the football weekend, all the various action going on, and we will additionally have our What Is Wrong With You championship for the month of September. Four great stories. Let's put together the list of finalists today. Great group. Really strong finalists.
Yeah, this is easily one of the best months of the year, no question.
So we will get to that. We'll hear from Devin Neal, star KU running back, Lawrence Native, all that and much more coming up today on 580 Sports Talk. And again, we'd love to hear from you either on the text line 785-272-9429 or the YouTube comment section. Our YouTube channel is called 580 Sports Talk.
There
you
can find us on
YouTube. And I goofing things up verbally. I got a headphone problem going on in here. This is just one of those days. Let's get to our keys to the game. And another example of why this is one of those days. I'm going to have you go first game with your first key today because my computer just logged me out.
Oh.
So if you'll give me just one second here, why don't you give us your first key to the game?
Okay, yeah. It's hard to do back-to-back weeks of trying to find keys to the game for team that on paper the Chiefs have overmatched. Chiefs aren't quite double-digit favorites in this one. They were 12.5-point favorites last week. We talked about that a lot. The spread for this game opened at 10. That was the consensus line. It's gone down now to 8.5, maybe 9 in some places, but the line has moved towards the Jets slightly this week. But again, you're talking about more than one score that the Chiefs are favored by. So it's tough to look at this game and say, man, the margins could be really fine here. Well, they're not supposed to be. The Chiefs are supposed to be a lot better than the Jets. Patrick Mahomes is supposed to be a lot better than Zach Wilson. And that might be all that needs to be said. That might be the only thing we come back on Monday and talk about after Sunday Night Football is, well, yeah, Mahomes did Mahomes stuff and Zach Wilson did Zach Wilson stuff, and it was 31-3. So it would be 2 straight weeks of something like that being the case. So it's hard because we try and give you insight. We try and give you keys. We try and make you smarter about the game that you're going to sit down and watch on the weekend. And sometimes that's hard because sometimes you want to avoid the obvious, but the obvious is all that really needs to be said. However, we were able to dig up some things for this game that the Chiefs either need to do well or watch out for. And the first key I'm going to go with, I look at this Jets defense. DJ Reed, former K-State Wildcat, who's carved out a really nice NFL career for himself. He's the starting cornerback opposite Sauce Gardner on this Jets defense. And he talked before the season about this Jets defense having a chance to be special, having a chance to be maybe an all-time defense. I don't remember the exact word he used, whether it was special or legendary or whatever it was, the exact word that DJ Reed used. I might even have to look that up and figure out what it was that he said. It will be a headline. Historical. That was the word. He said this could be a historical defense. They've been a lot closer to hysterical than historical through 3 weeks. And a big part of that reason is the cornerbacks, Reed and Gardner, aren't making any plays. They have 2 passes defensed, no interceptions through the first 3 weeks. So especially with the Sunday night lights shining bright on NBC, they're going to be fired up to go and try and make a play. And they need to make plays, quite frankly. Flipping the field with turnovers is going to be a way that the Jets can pull off the upset on Sunday. So I think this defensive unit for the Jets is going to play with their hair on fire. I think they're going to be really aggressive. I think they're going to try and get downfield. And I think this creates opportunities for the Chiefs to take advantage of New York's defensive aggressiveness, hit on some stop and goes, and really create some big plays in the passing game, because I expect the Jets defense to come flying upfield all night. I think the screen game, I think the wide receiver screen game, I think the wide receiver, the pop passes, the jet sweeps, things like that. I think those plays are going to be really effective for the Chiefs on a night like this against a defense that's just dying to make a positive impact, because they know they have to be perfect. If they're not perfect, that team can't win with Zach Wilson quarterback. So take advantage of that aggressiveness, take advantage of that desire to make a play, and maybe use it against them a little bit on Sunday night.
If I may
ask before I get to my first game, because it will pertain to Zach Wilson directly.
Are the Jets doing the right thing? There's no good outcome at quarterback
for the Jets
after Aaron Rodgers went down. There's just not. Because it's either you stick with crappy Zach Wilson, or you go get a straight free agent, or you trade. I guess the best outcome would be you trade for a starting caliber quarterback who's on a floundering team, or a good backup from somewhere else. But there's no good outcome. That being said, we saw what we saw from Zach Wilson 2 years ago. We saw what we saw from Zach Wilson last year. We have seen now essentially three full games from Zach Wilson this year. How do you keep him at starting? Yeah, I saw someone post a video on Twitter this week. Said, man, what happened to Zach Wilson? It was a few of his best, biggest highlight passes from his days at BYU. Well, I would recommend, if you saw the video on Twitter, to go back and watch it. And as a smart football viewer, don't watch Zach Wilson. Watch BYU's offensive line. Because on the 4 or 5 plays they showed in that clip, how many times Zach Wilson got pressured? Precisely zero. No pressure at all. And he was slinging it. He made some good throws. Although one of the throws in that clip was a diving two-hand toe tap to the end zone. This isn't even a Wilson play. All his receivers. He had multiple NFL receivers on that team. Let's not forget about that. The Romney, Isaac still there. I think he's going to be a Sunday guy, probably a late round pick this coming year. He just doesn't have it. He doesn't have it to be an NFL quarterback. Frankly, it's not even that strong. It's the pocket presence. It's the awareness. His Madden awareness rating's got to be close. Like he just is so flustered all the time. But I don't know that you can do better. Like, is Carson Wentz better right now than Zach Wilson? Because that's probably your best street free agent. Maybe. I don't know. That's kind of Carson Wentz's problem too, right? Like you run stupid plays all the time.
Yeah. And then you have no familiarity with the offense either, so you got to get him up to speed in the offense. He's only going to be comfortable running certain things for the first couple of weeks. Like, I understand that there are no good choices for Robert Saleh, but I also understand that last year it was so difficult on the Jets defense, which was, I think it was borderline championship caliber last year, and they couldn't get to the playoffs because that guy was their quarterback. And unlike the Broncos 2 years ago, the Jets were correct in evaluating their roster and saying, we are a quarterback away. We are going to trade some picks. We are going to go get the quarterback that can win with these players, because we are a quarterback away from being a problem. And they went and got that quarterback, and they had him for all of 4 snaps. It is unfathomably cruel that happened to Aaron Rodgers and that happened to the Jets. But it happened. So now you're back to square one with Zach Wilson. And never in your wildest dreams did you think you were going to have to play Zach Wilson this year. But here he is. And He's not gotten any better.
Stinks.
Like, if anything rubbed off on him from Aaron Rodgers, we certainly have yet to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And now frustration is going to set in because this year was supposed to be different. And we're already hearing reports of dissension in that locker room, frustration in that locker room, the defense feeling like they have to be, like I said, flawless, essentially, if they're going to win a game, because they're not going to score enough to win games unless the defense scores some points for them or special teams. The win they've got, walk-off punt return touchdown in overtime. So that's, and what the defense forced that night, 4 turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the formula with Zach Wilson as your quarterback. +4 in turnovers and special teams play that flips the field or scores points. That's what it has to be. So I think that frustration is real, but I don't think there's a realistic way to address it. They just have to rally behind this guy and give it everything they've got for him. But unfortunately, we know what the best case scenario for that looks like because we saw it last year.
And that brings me to key number 1 for me. Get pressure on him. That's it. I mean, it's very simple. You could argue this is a key in every single game. Yeah, get pressure on the quarterback. That's important. We watched Zach Wilson sack himself last week against the Patriots pass rush. I mean, he gets flustered, he loses his mind, and then makes a bad play. That's who he has been ever since he was drafted back in 2021. So for me, the key number 1, get in his face. Would you, if you were Robert Saleh or Nathaniel Hackett, trust your quarterback under pressure? With a guy in his face, would you still be willing to say, oh yeah, he's going to be fine? No, absolutely not. There's no chance of that. So get pressure on him. It is a disaster waiting to happen when he drops back, gets a hand in his face, a helmet in his face, whatever. You get in the backfield, you should be fine. And that's probably going to be doable for the Chiefs because the Jets' offensive line is very bad. They've got a couple pieces that I like. I like Mekhi Becton as a player. Now they're moving him from right tackle to left tackle because Dwayne Brown is out injured. Don't know if he'll be quite the same. He's also incredibly fragile. I like Elijah Vera-Tucker. He's been banged up already this year, though. It's just not a good unit overall. So the Chiefs should be able to live in the backfield during this game.
My second key to this game has to do with red zone defense. The Jets defense over the last season in 3 games has been one of the NFL's best in the red zone. They're top 10 in the league so far this year at preventing touchdowns in the red zone. They were 3rd in the league last year in preventing touchdowns. So the Chiefs are going to end up, we think, with more scoring chances than the Jets. They have a better offense. They have a better quarterback. They should be able to drive the ball with more ease. They should end up with more scoring chances. But coming away from those scoring chances with 3 and not with 7 could keep this game closer than it ought to be for longer than it ought to be. So if the Chiefs are able, particularly early on in the contest, to finish off a red zone trip with a touchdown, get Travis Kelce in the end zone with Taylor Swift watching from wherever she'll be watching from, get Isaiah Pacheco running into the end zone or whatever it is, finish those drives with 7 early on, because this strikes me as the kind of game that if the Chiefs do take an early lead, they're not going to take a ton of chances. They're going to kick field goals instead of go for 7, because I think they feel like they can win if they keep taking the profit and getting the 3 points in those situations. But early on, I want to see him be aggressive in the red zone and try and finish those drives with 7 early in the game so that you just take the hope away. You take the energy out of that stadium. MetLife Stadium is going to be jumping. It's prime time. Jets fans are passionate. That's going to be a fired up stadium and a fired up team. But if you go and you put them behind the 8 ball, you do that by finishing in the red zone, you're going to take the air out of the balloon in a rapid fashion.
Fireman Ed going to be apoplectic if that place is crowded, packed, 100% full, and half the crowd is watching Taylor Swift sitting in a suite, and the other half is laughing at the Jets as they get crushed by 40 points on the field. My second key for this weekend, put this game away early. I saw this from Marlo Ferguson over at Arrowhead Report at SI, our friends over there. This season, Zach Wilson has attempted 84 passes. 80 of them have been attempted after the Jets have been trailing.
So they fall behind early is what you're telling me.
Early, immediately in games this season. That's crazy. That is truly crazy. He has thrown 4 passes in either a tied game or a game in which the Jets are ahead. That is nuts. They've got playmakers. We talked about that with Mitch Holthus yesterday. Garrett Wilson is a dude. He is certifiable.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Breece Hall, same way. Still maybe not 100%, although he did participate in full at practice yesterday for the first time. He's awesome. We know Breece Hall is awesome. They've got some pieces Don't even give those guys a chance. Blow them out early and put this game to bed by halftime. Because you know what you have to do if you're down by a lot of points?
Throw the ball.
You got to throw the ball. You got to, once again, trust Zach Wilson. Don't even give them a chance. Go up 14, 17, 21 points. Just put this game away early. Force Wilson into turnover-prone situations. Don't allow one big Garrett Wilson play to completely swing the game. Don't allow one big Breece Hall run to completely swing the game. I think the Chiefs are going to end up being just fine. I mean, if they score 17 points on their first 3 drives, the game's over. There's no way, because I just don't think the Jets could possibly score more anywhere close to that on their first few drives, because how can you trust them to score at all?
Yeah, the 20-point barrier feels kind of insurmountable for the Jets at this stage with what they have offensively. The passing game just isn't really functional. And Garrett Wilson's really good. I think the Chiefs are probably going to bracket him and leave McDuffie one-on-one with a receiver on the other side, kind of like they did against Jacksonville. They're going to take away that passing option. And I just have a lot of trouble seeing the Jets cracking 20, and the Chiefs usually do that with relative ease. So that's kind of, it's the math, right? It comes down to being a bit of a math problem for the Jets. How do they get those extra points? Well, you do it if you can flip the field with a turnover, or if you can score on a turnover, if you can score on a special teams play. Chiefs generally good at avoiding those things. So where do the points come from? Well, you put them behind early, and that's a team that might have a whiff of quit to them if you can bury them early.
Sam in the YouTube comments asks, is Zach Wilson better than Justin Fields at throwing?
I don't like even thinking about that question, Sam. That's not a fun thing to think about. Like, I don't like contemplating Zach Wilson or Justin Fields as hard as I need to contemplate them to correctly answer that question.
I am going to say no. I am going to say I think Fields is a better thrower, because I think he's just got more physical gifts than Zach Wilson does. Now, can he use those gifts? The evidence indicates no, he really can't.
Here's if the question is you need to convert a 3rd and 8 for your life, and one of those two has to be your quarterback, I take Fields without a second thought.
Yeah, no, I would too. At the very least, you're getting a better arm punt out of him.
Yeah.
Sam then adds to tack onto his question. Otherwise, they are going to lose by 50. Well, they might lose by 50 in this game, because Zach Wilson is no good. Who's your big Chief pick?
You know, I wavered on this quite a bit. I wanted to choose an offensive player, but I think it's really hard to choose a Chiefs pass catcher at this point, because Patrick Mahomes has spread the ball around, spread the wealth around quite a bit. And it's kind of cliche to take Travis Kelce, even if I do think he's going to score a touchdown on Sunday. I think he's like minus 155 in the betting markets to score a touchdown, which is a big negative number for a player to be in the anytime touchdown market. So I stayed away from the cliched answer. I went over to the defensive side because I think Zach Wilson's going to throw a pick, and I think Justin Reed's going to get it. I think Reed's play has been better and better since the first half of the Detroit game, where I thought he really struggled. I thought he was excellent. Almost got himself a pick. He had that deflected pass that Mike Edwards ended up intercepting.
Yep.
I think Justin Reed gets one for himself on Sunday night.
My big Chief is George Karlaftis. I thought about going with Chris Jones here, but that almost seemed too easy. So I'm going to go with Karlaftis here. I've been so impressed by what he has done so far this season. It really does feel like he has taken that expected big leap from year 1 to year 2. I think he's going to feast inside, whether you're lining him up over Becton, who's now got to flip his footwork around, and again, is fragile, and that does impact your play when you get injured all the time, or you put him on the opposite side. I don't even know who is starting at right tackle for the Jets
I think that's going to be Vera Tucker.
Oh, they're going to put him at tackle. Okay. All right. Well, then shoot, run inside. Stunt him inside. They should be running TE stunt every single passing down and just get Karlaftis running inside. That I like Karlaftis even more, I think, knowing there's no help on the inside now for the Jets. So, yeah, give me Big George. I think he's going to have a big day. I've got the Chiefs and the over today. I'm going to go Chiefs 27, Jets 13. Or that's the under, actually. Excuse me. I counted that as 50. That is absolutely not 50 points.
Total's 41.5, I believe.
Yeah, so I'll go just under. I do think the Jets have a good defense. We've talked about their back seven a lot and how talented they are. I just don't think they have nearly enough to slow down this Chiefs team. And their offense stinks. So I'll give them 13 points. Very likely could be garbage time, but I think the Chiefs win by multiple scores.
I'm going 23-10 Chiefs. I think that the Chiefs will be content on some drives to take field goals, but I think they will do so after having jumped out to a 10-0 lead and feeling like the defense will play well enough for them to sit on that a little bit. And the defense will play enough, I think, for them to be able to sit on that. I think we have to start discussing in these games, putting a little bit more weight on the fact that the Chiefs defense has only allowed 3 touchdowns in 3 weeks. And one of those was garbage time against Chicago last week and came off of an interception, so off of a turnover. So I think this Chiefs defense has another performance like that in them against an offense that's barely been functional.
We want your picks, whether it's game score, big Chief, hell, a key to the game, whatever you want. Send them in. Text line 785-272-9429. YouTube comment section. Our YouTube channel is called 580 Sports Talk. Just go to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk. We're the first result. Make sure you subscribe to us. That's the best way to find all of our videos as soon as they go live. And of course, you can hop into the comment section to watch the live video stream today. Coming up on the other side of this break, we'll play this week's round of Change My Mind, including some breaking news for my Change My Mind. Also, Paul Myerberg of USA Today will join us later on this hour for the Big 12 Breakdown. It's all coming up here on 580 Sports Talk. We're just getting started on this feel-good Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you today. Jake Laban is off for the weekend. I got my headphone issue fixed. Got my good ones for my desk, so we're all set here. All right. Quick round to Change My Mind before we get to Paul Myerberg. Breaking news will lead to my Change My Mind for today. Adam Schefter just reporting now that the NFL and NFL Players Association are modifying its gambling policies. There now will be increased discipline if you gamble on NFL games as an NFL player or coach or personnel member. A violation is now a guaranteed 1 year if you bet on an NFL game, 2 years if you bet on your own team, and any proof of game fixing obviously is going to result in banishment. Schefter adds that the message here is clearly do not bet on the NFL. Changed my mind. This was too late. They got to this policy too late. This is absolutely the right thing.
Yeah, I don't know about too late because I don't think it's ever too late to get to the right policy.
Sure.
But I think this is entirely necessary, particularly with how intertwined professional leagues and gambling are now, you have to go to the greatest possible lengths to avoid the appearance of any kind of impropriety when it comes to betting on games. You can't have your players betting on games knowing that they have actionable information that they can use to potentially fix games or turn a profit. You can't have it. It can't exist, because the integrity of the games it's all you got. If you don't have that, you're pro wrestling. And so it's entirely necessary for the league to overreact. I mean, I don't know. I'd go lifetime ban if you bet on. It may not even go far enough as far as I'm concerned. I do like this though. Betting on non-NFL sports from the workplace now carries a smaller penalty for first-time offenders. Remember, Jameson Williams of the Lions is the active example of a player who bet on, I don't know, NBA games or whatever it was he was betting on at the team facility and got suspended for 6 games. From now on, first violation on that will be a 2-game suspension.
Wow.
The second violation will be 6, and the third violation will be a 1-year suspension.
Wow, that's actually quite favorable. Because I do think you still should have to face some punishment for that, because it's a
rule
taboo topic in the NFL facility. You're getting pretty close to the line there. So I have no problem with that. I honestly think the NFL already had a pretty fair policy. Like, hey, you can gamble on anything else you want, but don't do it at work or the team hotel or whatever, and don't gamble on your league or your games. I actually think that's pretty fair.
There's also this. Jameson Williams and Nicholas Petit-Frere, the offensive lineman for the Titans that was also suspended, they have been reinstated effective Monday.
Wow.
So they will be able to return to their teams for next week's games.
You know, that's good. I think that's the right thing. I know they ended up serving 4 games instead of just 2, but no, I'm in favor of that. I think that's definitely a good thing.
I'm going to go get Jameson Williams in fantasy.
I found him in 2 different leagues in like the 12th round because no one wanted him. I am feeling pretty good right now.
So I am going to go pick him up and do what I can. Anyhow, change my mind today has to do with the Major League Baseball playoffs, which are set to start next week. Change my mind. 6 playoff teams per league is too many.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. You don't need that many playoff teams, in my opinion, when you have played 162 games in the season. You've determined who the best teams are. And in professional sports, I prefer to have the true best team win the championship. Now, there are upsets, obviously, and that's fine. And not every league can do this the same way. Like, football is all 1-game sample sizes, except, you play your divisional teams twice. But otherwise, it's a series of 1-game sample sizes. You only play 17 in a regular season. Baseball, you play 162 games. You play almost 10 times as many games as a football team does. NBA, 82 games. Hockey, 82 games. I know we all love the NCAA tournament. It's the most fun way to pick a champion. It is also probably the least accurate way to pick a champion, unless you have, Anthony Davis on your team or something like that, right? Like, that doesn't happen all that often. So, to me, I was always fine with just 4. I totally fine with that. 5, I warmed up to eventually, because the wild card game, again, not a great way to pick a playoff team, but it was fun enough. There was drama, at least. We've gone too far. I really think after that much playing time already, you can whittle it down further than that.
The teams that are going to make the playoffs as the 6 seeds in either league, whoever it ends up being, because those are still up for grabs entering the final weekend of the season. And I guess that's part of why you do this, is you heighten the intrigue of the final weekend of the regular season. But at various points in the last week to month, I have heard about how dumpster garbage those teams are and how they're dead. Their seasons are dead in the water. The Mariners were dead, and then they won a game last night. Now they might make it. The Astros were dead after they got swept by and lost 5 of 6 to the Royals. Now it looks like they're safely in. The Cubs were dead after they lost 6 of 12 over an 18-game span. The Marlins have been dead all this time because they have a negative run differential. Now they might make the playoffs. Like, we don't need that 6th team. I feel the same way about the 7th team in the NFL. When by the end of the year you look up and say, oh, wow, that team made the playoffs. They're not that awesome. And then they go out and they get pantsed in the first round of the playoffs. Generally speaking, that's how that works. Of course, in baseball, the 6th seed last year in the National League went to the World Series. So baseball obviously is a little bit different, but it's too many playoff teams. I don't care for it.
Let's get to a quick timeout, then we'll talk to Paul Myerberg, the best of the best when it comes to covering college football from USA Today. He'll join us next on 580 Sports Talk. Be joined shortly, we assume, by Paul Myerberg from USA Today. Just trying to get Paul on the phone. He covers all things college football for America's newspaper. Lot to get to in the Big 12 this week, including who would have thought that KU versus Texas might be one of the biggest games in the country coming up this week, let alone one of the biggest games in the Big 12. Top 25 matchup in Austin. Final meeting between these two teams as league foes. So we'll get to that coming up here in a few minutes once we're able to get Paul on the line. We'll get to our game picks a little bit later on in the show. That's coming up at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. Good week for everyone, by the way. Dan and I both went 3-2. Jake is lapping the pack at the moment. How about a 5-0 week? He's a full 4 games clear of Dan at this point. Yours truly is still all the way in the basement at just 7-11 for the year. We'll also get to our full NFL and college football weekend preview coming up at the top of the 3 o'clock hour today. We are now, for most teams, in the bulk of the conference schedule. There are a couple teams in Big Ten play that are playing nobodies. Like Rutgers is playing Wagner this week. And I know that's because they played a week 1 conference game. They took on they played a conference game at the very start of the season when most other teams are playing non-con games. I get that. But it is very weird to see a Power 5 team playing a non-conference game against an FCS foe in week 5. Just like it's weird to see SEC teams playing their warm-up games in the 11th week of the season or for their 11th game of the season. But, that's neither here nor there. So we'll get to all of that, our full college football preview coming up in just a little bit. And I think we're still waiting to see if we can get Paul on the line. We'll keep trying, Paul. We'll get him in here eventually. Usually we talk to him on Thursdays, but because the Royals decided to eat up the vast majority of our afternoon yesterday.
That was a lot of baseball.
There's a lot of baseball. A lot
of unnecessary baseball. But now Royals are back on 107 watch.
Yeah.
They gotta win this final series against the Yankees to avoid having the worst record in franchise history.
Yeah, that's tough.
And we're still waiting on that 30th dinger for Bobby Witt Jr. too.
Yeah, I'm a little worried that one's not coming.
Yeah, growing concern.
The fear has set in that he's not going to get to that 30-30 mark. Doesn't take away from how incredible his season has been for what it's worth, but humans like rounded numbers. We've got a bunch of football coming up on our airwaves coming up this weekend. Obviously, Royals baseball tonight, 7:10 first pitch, 6:30 pregame, following some 580 sports talk overtime. We've got our Lewis Toyota High School Football Game of the Week coming up tonight. That'll be on Country 106.9. War on 24. This will be my first War on 24 that I'll be calling from up atop the press box. Looking forward to it myself. Dan, as well as Greg Akagi, will be on the call of that one. 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock kickoff over on Country 106.9. Washburn football on Country 106.9 tomorrow. 1:30 pregame with a 2 o'clock kickoff from Kearney, Cope Stadium. Kearney, Nebraska. Yours truly will be out there in Western Nebraska for that game. Fletcher Terrell and Trenton Kraxner alongside for the broadcast of that one. And, of course, we've got Chiefs football coming up on Sunday. Late kickoff. 6 o'clock pregame, 7:20 kickoff for Sunday night football coming up on Sunday night, obviously. So a lot of football to get to. No K-State. I was going to ask you, because we talked with Fitz about this earlier in the week, about K-State getting the early bye week. Should you feel grateful if you're K-State that now you kind of know what you are, you get a chance to rest, and then you can go full bore into the rest of the season? Or would you really prefer to have more time before that layoff so you can get a little more rested for the home stretch?
I don't think any coach likes the early bye. I think he'd rather have a later bye, regroup for that final finishing kick to the season and hope to be able to finish strong. But I do think also that there is some validity to this early in the season. You have a chance to make sure that you've got your ducks in a row, that maybe if you've got some early season injuries, you're able to work those guys back in with a full week of practice. I think it's going to be valuable for guys like Jake Clifton coming back at linebacker, guys like Christian Duffy coming back at right tackle, guys like Will Howard as well. It will be valuable for them. But by and large, I think any coach you ask, if you made them tell you the truth, they'd say they'd rather have a later bye than an earlier bye.
Joining us now on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline, it is America's college football writer for America's newspaper, Paul Myerberg from USA Today, joining us. Paul, great to hear from you. Thank you so much for being flexible with the schedule. I know yesterday got all jacked up by those darn Kansas City Royals. Number one, first question leading you into this week. Number one game you are most excited for, Big 12 or otherwise, coming up on the Week 5 schedule?
Yeah, I hate to not do Big 12, but I just had a chance to talk with Mike Elko a little bit ago, and I'm fired up for Duke Notre Dame. I'm looking at that game, and I'm seeing Duke fired up, 4-0, best start for them in ages, against a Notre Dame team that needs to prove itself after kind of hitting the skids late in that game against Ohio State. So I hate to go out of the footprint, but that's a 7:30 start on ABC. Duke's the center of college football for a couple hours. I just think that's wild. So I'm really digging that one.
I remember last year being at the KU versus Duke game in Lawrence and thinking, man, this isn't the old Kansas football, but this isn't the old Duke football either. They got a quarterback who can throw. It looks like they really know what they're doing. And it has only gotten better from there for the Duke Blue Devils. And I kind of like having the basketball power step up and become some viable football programs, Paul.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, KU, Duke, top 25. It's almost October. I mean, this is honestly, I think I've said this to you guys before as a metaphor, but it's like when you play your 5th or 6th season of NCAA football 14 and like Arkansas State is number 3 in the country. It really feels odd. You got to wrap your head around it. But look, like if you watch this sport and you care about this sport, you don't look at Duke and Kansas and say, oh, man, this is just a matter of time before it falls apart. KU and Duke, I think, are for real, and I think they're keepers. I mean, these aren't 10-2 teams, 9-3 teams potentially, but these are both teams that could be in the top 25 now and stay there all year long. I really, really, really believe that about both programs.
Well, let's get to some of the Big 12 action. And looking at the schedule, I think this is without a doubt the biggest game in the Big 12 this week. Top 25 matchup. Kansas on the road in Austin, taking on Texas. I know that Lance Leipold has said multiple times this week, we're not thinking about 2021. That was 2 years ago. We are a new team. We're a different team right now. But by the same token, Paul, how do you not at least think a little bit about the last time a healthy Jalen Daniels took on Texas and KU knocked him off down at Darrell K. Royal?
Yeah, he's got to say that, right? And I get it. I understand. Look, whatever Lance says, if he says jump, we all say how high because he knows what he's doing. But look, you don't forget. You don't forget going to Austin your last time. I'm sorry for the noise. You don't forget going to Austin your last time and winning by a point and shocking the country and making a name for yourself as a program. And I think where KU is as a program and where Texas is as a program is different than where they were. I mean, these are improved teams and improved programs. So the idea that they would not think about that as confidence builders, I think that's a little bit of a streak. I really do.
Looking at this matchup on the field, KU obviously playing well. Texas has one of the best teams in the country, and there's someone out there in the AP poll who said they are the best team in the country right now. What is Kansas going to have to do well in order, specifically in order to pull off the upset? Because I think most people would tell you, even though KU is playing well overall, they've got to play an A-plus game and need Texas to really struggle with something, turnovers, time of possession, missed kicks, whatever, in order for Kansas to pull off the win. So what area in particular is KU going to have to dominate to pull off this road upset?
Yeah, I buy into that a bit, but I don't want to sit here and say that KU needs an A-plus game because I don't really think that they do. I really don't. Look, they can't play a B-minus game and win this. They just can't. But this is a team that can go toe-to-toe with Texas, dictate the tempo, run up and down the field like they did against BYU and set the tone and be a team that wins this game. But look, you got to win the turnover battle. I think that's the case for any team when you have they do not have a schematic disadvantage, but they have a roster disadvantage. No disrespect to the Hawks. So they've got to win that battle. But other than that, they can go toe-to-toe with Texas. We know that they can. And the idea that Texas is this behemoth, look, they look good. They've also taken a step forward. But I don't want to say for Kansas that this is a game that they've got to play A+ and Texas got to stub its toe. I think on an even playing field, they're +2, maybe +1 with one big play on defense or special teams. This is a game that they can win. So this is not to me like 21 again. This is 23. These are two different teams. KU obviously a different team, and KU a team that, as much as anyone in the country, is playing with confidence right now.
Our guest is Paul Myerberg of USA Today, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for the Big 12 breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. Paul joining us a day later than usual, usually joins us on Thursdays, gracious enough to join us on this Friday to break down Big 12 football here on 580 Sports Talk. Check out Paul's work with USA Today and find him on Twitter at Paul Myerberg. Paul, this is not a sexy week of Big 12 football. The folks in the desert don't think much of any of the games on Saturday, which means the tightest matchup might be a couple of the Big 12 newcomers that's being played tonight. Cincinnati's at BYU. BYU is a home underdog. Make that one make sense to me. And is this the most competitive game potentially in the conference this week?
Yeah, it is. It doesn't feel like the most important one, obviously, but it does feel like the one that has a chance to be the tightest. My head on this, in terms of why Cincy's a favorite team, I think people look at Cincinnati and realize that they do a couple things well. I don't think they're very well coached. I do think they're strong at the point of attack. I think BYU as a team is still kind of hard to predict, right? I think we thought going into the KU game, after Arkansas, for example, they might be comfortable in a game that went up and down, a game that got into the 30s. Turns out, after it got out of the 20s, that BYU doesn't have the firepower for it. So I think when people look at Cincinnati, they see a team that might be able to slow down BYU enough on the ground, make them more one-dimensional, and win an ugly game. I guess winning ugly games that are 17-14, 20-13 used to be BYU style, probably not BYU style this year. So I think looking at this team, looking at this program right now, UCF, and K-State fans can probably test to it, UCF's the best of the newcomers, I think. And I think these two teams are behind those two, like by a big step. So it's an interesting game that might tell you a little bit about the direction of these teams in the Big 12, but yeah, it's not a dynamic week. KU Tech is very, very, very clearly one of the best games of the week nationally, and certainly the best game in the Big 12.
Of the other four Saturday games, Houston at Texas Tech, Baylor at UCF, Iowa State at Oklahoma, West Virginia at TCU, which road team do you think has the best chance to either spring an upset or at least put forward a good accounting for themselves as a 2-score or more underdog?
Yeah, West Virginia was not a team that I liked, and we talked about them back in August. I did not like this team, and I honestly, I really still don't. But talking to a couple people around the Big 12, not necessarily at West Virginia this past week, just to get a grasp on how things are going heading into the heart of conference play, I think people are a little bit higher on West Virginia than most, certainly in the coaching profession. So I had a couple coaches, not a couple. I had one coach tell me this could be an 8 or 9 win team, and I kind of rolled my eyes because I don't quite buy that. But I think West Virginia isn't in a position in a Big 12 that seems a little bit topsy-turvy outside the top 3 or 4 to make some noise. So TCU has rebounded nicely from Colorado. They've kind of gotten their season back on track. What they did against Houston, who I thought was pretty impressive. But West Virginia is a team that I think we need to keep an eye on. Not a team that I think can finish in the top 2 or even the top 4, but I think they're better than I gave them credit for. So I think they do end up, I don't know if they're going to win this game, but they're going to acquit themselves well. And look, West Virginia as a program is stodgy. As a team, they're pretty stodgy. But if you go up against a TCU, which is more dynamic, a little bit more explosive, and you acquit yourself well there, that bodes well for October and November. So I'm actually going to watch West Virginia pretty closely this weekend because I want to get a better grasp of how they're going to handle high-tempo, up-tempo, high-pressure games against the best offenses in the Big 12.
Texas Tech's season is on the brink. They are 1-3 and 0-1 in the Big 12 after they lost to West Virginia last week, and they are going to be without Tyler Shuck the rest of the season after he broke his leg in that loss to the Mountaineers. Can Joey McGuire's Red Raiders turn it around? They are favored against Houston this weekend, but how much better are things going to get for Texas Tech? Can they rescue bowl eligibility from this year, or is this starting to feel like a lost season in Lubbock?
Yeah, it is starting to feel like a lost season, guys. And look, you lose close games early, and it can define your year, and you trump that with the fact that Chuck is out for the duration. I'm concerned. And also, when you're Texas Tech guys, like, we've been through this fire before. Like, we know second-year coaches, you have that first-year bump. You go into year 2, all eyes are on you. My concern for McGuire and for Tech, as well as they've been recruiting, as well as their name has been circulating in Texas coaching circles, if they don't capitalize this year, that's my concern, right? Is that you go 5-7, all of a sudden the bloom's off the rose, and you're picked, third or fourth from the bottom in 24, and things are different. So they need this one Saturday, obviously, to get to 6-6. If I had to bet right now, I don't think they're going to get to 6-6. I really don't. They could, they definitely could, but if I had to bet either way, I think they top out at 5-7. Remember, going 6-6 in right now means you got to go 5 and you got to win 5 conference games. You know what I mean? And I just don't know if they have what it takes right now where you can say with confidence, this is going to be a team that wins 5 league games. I just don't buy it right now. And that's disappointing because I like McGuire. I like the direction that he had things going out of last season.
2 more quick questions for Paul Myerberg from USA Today. Joins us usually on Thursdays, but on Friday this week for the Big 12 breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. Paul joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Paul, how good is Oklahoma? Because I watched their defense play the last couple of weeks, and that defense is good. And, Brent Venables is their coach. That makes sense. Their offense, I'm still not sold. I'm not a huge Dylan Gabriel guy. So how for real is Oklahoma?
Okay, this is a great question. And this is why I was talking to some people, because I believe that Oklahoma's pretty good. And I think Oklahoma is a team that every week is going to get better. I'm 100% with you in terms of the split on each side of the ball. Dylan Gabriel's numbers are good. I think his command of the offense is good. But you're looking at a guy who might be a little bit physically limited to take this offense to the next level. And that concerns me, obviously. So this is not a playoff team. It's not a Big 12 championship team. But where I come down on it, I think this might be a 10-win team. I really do. And I think that the fact that what I like the most is the fact that clearly on defense, in the locker room, as a program, they're beginning to beat a Brent Venables team, which is what the team that we thought they would be. Fiery, aggressive on defense, proud on defense. And for now, you can build off that. So I don't think this is going to be Bob Stoops year 2, 13-0. I really think this can be a 10-win team. I really do. So I don't think they're great. I think they could be very, very good. And look, we know how this goes, right? If OU goes 10-2, wins a bowl game against a pretty good SEC, ACC team, goes 11-2 and finishes 8-12 in the final poll, you're going to hear tons of chatter this time, next February, March, about this being a potential championship team. So it's a big run for them. I think they've got what it takes. If they go 9-3, I think that's fine. If they go 8-4, I'll eat my words. But I think this is a better team than that.
All right, Paul, we've got just about 30 seconds here. Dumpster garbage pick of the week. Arkansas State at UMass. Who you got?
Oh, I got Arkansas State. Look, you do this job long enough. You just learn. Never bet against Butch Jones. Butch Jones is like, he's like he's Tom Landry, Nick Saban all rolled into one. He's incredible. But look, they're playing UMass, so I'm taking Arkansas State. Arkansas State, I got 10 seconds left. Arkansas State had a moment where they could have capitalized and really taken a step forward as a program, and I think they missed that window. They're better than UMass, though, but so are we.
Paul Myerberg is the best of the best when it comes to covering college football. Check out his work in USA Today and at usatoday.com. He joins us every week for the Big 12 breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. Appreciate the time as always, Paul. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, guys. Talk to you.
That is Paul Myerberg from USA Today. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Yeah, Butch Jones. so bad, man.
Real bad.
We've got to get to a break for the news. We'll talk all things football this weekend coming up next. number 2 of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He's Dan Lucero. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on this Feel Good Friday, Red Friday afternoon. Big thanks also to Paul Myerberg from USA Today for hopping on with us to talk all things Big 12 football and the Big 12 breakdown. If you missed any of that interview or any segment from the show, just head to our website, 580wibw.com. Go to the podcasts tab, just hover over that, then click on 580 Sports Talk, and that's when you'll find, or where you'll find, the hour-by-hour podcast version of the show.
Eventually, that will be true. Our back end is down presently.
One of those days.
But you can catch past episodes on the podcast page, and eventually you'll be able to listen to this show's hour-by-hour breakdown on the podcast page.
Your other alternative is to head to YouTube. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. You can go back, rewind the live stream as we're going, then catch up later. You can go watch old episodes of the show. They are all up there. They're all up there, as far as I'm aware, in perpetuity on our YouTube channel. 580 Sports Talk is where you can go and find those.
Nothing gets deleted on YouTube. You can even go find Dramatic Chipmunk, Keyboard Cat, all your old favorites.
Yeah, I was a big Dramatic Chipmunk fan back in the day. I thought that was like the peak of comedy at 12 years old.
The funniest video I think that I ever saw in my life was, remember the Spirit of Truth, the foul-mouthed pastor?
No, I don't think I do.
Who his Bible looked like the Yellow Pages, and it was like public access television, and
that's pretty funny.
Parliament Funkadelic is playing in the background, and he's like screaming at people. Not in language that any God I'm aware of would approve of.
No, I do not recall that video at all. My all-time favorite probably is a fake car commercial for a dealership in the city of Baltimore. And it was just called Bleep You Baltimore. It was like a minute long.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one.
Super crass. And again,
I thought you were talking about Eastern Motors. I'm like, no, it wasn't fictional. Those were real.
Those
were real commercials with like Clinton Portis and LeVar Arrington and Brendan Haywood.
No, this was a little bit more risque, I would say.
Okay.
All right, coming up here in this 3 o'clock hour, we got plenty of football to get to. Obviously, big football weekend. We will preview college and NFL action from around the country coming up here in a few. We'll play some On Second Thoughts. Have a couple of mea culpas for some bad takes over the last week. And Matt Derrick is going to join us from ChiefsDigest.com, our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs insider on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. We're still taking your texts. Text line number, you know it, 785-272-9429. YouTube channel, now I know it, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can find us online. How close to the top of the list for best game or biggest game in the country this week is KU at Texas?
It's pretty high. I mean, there aren't a lot of ranked matchups this week. I mean, as much as Fox is trying to will it into existence as the game of the year, I don't know that anybody has really high expectations for USC and Colorado to be competitive for 60 minutes. Auburn and Georgia, I don't expect to be competitive for 60 minutes.
Nope. In fact, how many ranked versus ranked matchups do you think there are this week?
You got Notre Dame Duke. You've got KU Texas.
Yep. You've got one tonight in Corvallis.
Oh, yes. Oregon State, Utah. Yes.
Oregon State hosting Utah. That one is going to be great. That's an 8 o'clock kickoff.
That's just going to be two teams beating each other with hammers for 60 minutes.
Yeah, big time. In fact, unless I mistype, we're going to have that featured in our pick segment coming up next hour. So that's one tonight. Your second one will be not until you get to the KU Texas game at 2:30 on ABC tomorrow. That's a ranked matchup. So there's two for you. LSU Ole Miss. That's a top 20 game. That's 3. And Notre Dame Duke.
4
ranked matchups all weekend.
There's a reason that KU and Texas got network television. Yep. There's a reason it's on ABC. It's legitimately a game with some intrigue, even though the point spread is, I think, still sitting at 16.5.
Yes, 16.5 is where I last saw it. No, I mean, it's a fascinating game. I have seen a number of fans say, and I've seen this in, message boards or Twitter or whatever, say that Texas is really going to prove something in this game. They can prove how good they are. And while as a KU alumnus and fan, I am flattered by that commentary, But Frank, and maybe I should be as optimistic as Paul Myerberg was when we talked to him last hour. I think Texas is going to win this game. I think it'll be competitive. I think KU will make a game of it. I don't think it's impossible for Kansas to win. Certainly not. But I think Texas probably will end up winning this game. I think the team we're going to learn the most about here is going to be KU. And I think the point spread is one good reason why. Our friends in the desert say this is a 3-score game, essentially, that Texas is going to win by 16.5 plus points. It started at 19.5. It has moved toward KU 3 full points, and it's still more than a 2-touchdown game on the spread. I think we are going to learn a lot about Kansas, though. And I don't mean to say that I'd be content with a moral victory, but I do think if you go toe-to-toe and you win or you lose this game like 35-31, you're going to have people taking notice. KU might not drop out of the rankings from 24 if they play a game like that against Texas. And if they win, obviously the hype is only going to become less sustainable and more intense going forward. I don't know. I feel like offensively, KU is going to be able to put up points because, look at this KU offense. This is the biggest test yet, though, and we've now had 3 biggest tests yet of KU up front. The offensive line is playing really well. Really well. These Texas dudes are all bigger, faster, stronger than anyone BYU or Illinois had, except maybe Newton for Illinois, who's stud. The offensive line for Texas, bigger, stronger, and hell, in space, maybe faster too than anyone for either Illinois or BYU that KU has faced in the last couple of weeks. There's no, what's his name? Zane Chrysler, the right tackle for Illinois, who was in hell for 3 hours a couple Friday nights ago. None of those dudes for Texas. So that's going to be the difference maker in this game, I think. If KU can hold their own, like if you see a great game from Austin Booker, Devin Phillips does his thing on the inside, the offensive line gives Jalen Daniels at least decent time, KU is going to be in this game. I am certain of it. And I don't think you can look to last year's game as a great example of what could be to come because Jalen Daniels wasn't healthy. He wasn't close to fully healthy for that game. So I do think KU is going to be in this game. I would take KU to cover the spread. I don't know that I actually will, but if I had to pick, I would take KU there. I just think this is a matter of in a game where both teams have something to prove, both teams are good, they're playing well, they've got the momentum. I think I have to side with the team that's got the better roster.
Yeah, and my greatest concern, you alluded to it there for Kansas, is that they're not going to be able to run the ball in the way that they need to run the ball to be multidimensional on offense. When you watch Texas play Alabama, the thing that was the most stark about the way that Texas was able to win that game was that they were better up front, that they had better players in the trenches than Alabama, which over the last decade, there are 5 or fewer teams that you could say that about in any given year. And 2 of them were the last 2 Georgia teams. Like you don't outman Alabama up front. And Texas did, particularly with their defensive line. They've got the planet-sized defensive tackles that move people and can engulf a running back before a play has a chance to get going. And those are the guys that I'm not sure that Kansas matches up really well against. So if they can't get Devin Neal on track, if they're not able to run successfully through the tackles and set themselves up in second down and medium, second down and manageable situations, stay ahead of schedule, like we like to say offensively, it could be a really long day at the office for that KU offense. Defensively, I like KU's chances better than most to limit some of the big plays that Texas has been able to make through the air. Quinn Ewers throws a good deep ball, and he's got guys who can run under it and go get it. This year, they've got 2 outstanding receivers. The tight end, whose name is Sanders. Jatavian Sanders. He is an extremely difficult matchup, but I like KU in the secondary. They've shown themselves capable of making some splash plays, forcing some turnovers. They're going to have to force at least 1 or 2, I think, to hang. But I don't think this is a spot where Texas is just going to hang 50 without breaking a sweat. Mm-hmm. And if KU can keep them in the 30s, they've got a chance to keep up for a while, I think, but it's going to take, I think, creativity in the running game, because I just have a lot of trouble seeing them winning in the trenches in a way that they did against BYU last week, in a way that they have in previous games where they have been able to run the ball pretty much however they wanted to run the ball. In this game, I think you're going to have to see Andy Kotelnicki go deep into the bag of tricks and try and get ball carriers on the perimeter and stay away from those matchups on the interior that I'm not sure KU can win. It's going to take a lot of creativity. It's going to take, again, some splash plays created by the defense. I think the point spread is fair. I'd expect Texas to win by a couple of touchdowns, but KU can approach this with nothing to lose. They get beat bad. They were supposed to get beat bad. This Texas team is supposed to be the Texas team that we've been waiting for the better part of the last decade. A team with the kind of talent that matches the Texas reputation. But if KU hangs tough, I think that would prove that they are an improved program from last year and a legitimate threat in any Big 12 game moving forward. Because if you can play with Texas, you can play with anybody in the league.
Is this the game you're most excited for around college football this weekend?
You know, it's this one, and I got to be honest, like, I've kind of swallowed the hype a little bit too, and part of it is because it's my home state's flagship university. But USC Colorado, I am fascinated to watch, even if I do think that USC can pick their final score. The whole question is going to be, how engaged are they on defense? Because they're not a good defensive team, but if they're engaged on defense, they should be able to limit Colorado to the 20s. If they're not engaged, we saw what that looked like last week when they were not engaged against Arizona State, and a 33-point underdog kept that game close into the fourth quarter. They were in a score in the fourth quarter. That could very easily happen again against a better Colorado offense. So I guess the question is, how hype is USC to play this game? Sure. I think they're going to be pretty turned up. Deion Sanders, by the way, yesterday said half the NBA is going to be at this game.
That's pretty funny.
Like, which half?
Yeah. Are we getting like, Austin Reeves and Bol Bol, or are we getting like Jason Tatum and LeBron?
Like, Kawhi Leonard was in Boulder 2 weeks ago. Uh-huh. So, like, yeah, there'll be some star power, but like, it's a very funny image to think like, oh, there's Joe Ingles
yeah,
turning up at the game.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah,
half way to phrase it.
The Plumlees, only one of them though. That's just we only got one Plumlee. We didn't get the other.
NIL budget ran out.
Yeah, so obviously there's gonna be a ton of hype, ton of star power in that game, and I'm interested to see if Colorado could acquit themselves better than they did against Oregon. But I expect USC to be able to decide, this is how many points we want to score. This is who we want to score the next touchdown through the air. Like, I think they're going to be able to really choose how many points in the end they want to put on that Colorado defense.
I'm with Paul. I'm pretty hyped about that Duke Notre Dame game. The fact that it's in Raleigh, I think that's going to be or Durham, excuse me. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think Duke's got a real chance in that game.
I don't.
No.
Wow. I think Duke's signature win was built on the back of a lot of flukes that happened to Clemson in that game.
Sure.
They couldn't execute. I've looked at that line all week with Notre Dame only being favored by 5.5. And Notre Dame is just going to out-talent Duke. I think Duke's going to play with their hair on fire. I think they're going to play hard. I think it's going to be a great crowd, a great atmosphere. College game day is finally going to Duke. Mm-hmm. I think that checks pretty much all the boxes for them.
They still have, I know Illinois has never gotten it among the Power Five. I think they're getting close, though. They're almost done.
This was a big box that they had to check off. And I know Lee Corso's excited. He's going to put on the devil's head. He's already said that. Like, I don't know if he's really picking them, but he wants to put that head on. I just think Notre Dame's got better players and a better quarterback. And I think that if they slowed Ohio State and held them to 17, I don't think Riley Leonard's going to be able to generate much for Duke. So I think Notre Dame's going to win that game. And I wouldn't be surprised if they pull away at the end and win by a couple scores.
Of the 69 Power Conference Autonomy 5 schools, there are 6 that they have not visited yet.
Wow.
They go in alphabetical order.
Vanderbilt?
No, they've been to Vanderbilt.
Okay. Cal. Illinois, you said.
Illinois.
Duke until this week.
Mm-hmm. A lot of East Coast.
Boston College.
They've been to BC.
Okay. UConn. No, not Power 5 anymore.
I bet they went to BC in 2007, if I had to guess.
Yeah. 2007 was such a weird year.
Such a great year.
Virginia?
They've never been to Virginia. Boy, they stink too.
Yeah, they are lousy. They're just East Coast Cal.
Yes, correct.
With better basketball.
Correct.
East Coast Cal. That's what they are. They've been to Tucson?
They have been to Tucson. I thought that Arizona would be on the list. They have been to Tucson. Lord only knows when.
Yeah, that's fact. You said East Coast.
East Coast.
Rutgers.
They've never been to Rutgers. That's 4 of 6.
They've been to College Park, Maryland?
They've never been to College Park. Maryland's on the list. One more. And this is amazing considering how many freaking people at ESPN went to this school.
They've never been to Syracuse.
They've never been to Syracuse. The college football schedule, we run into weeks like in week 3 where you just look at the whole schedule and go, ugh. Like there's just not really anything interesting here. I don't think this is one of those weeks, but this is a week where the bottom of the barrel games are so bad. Like there are so many games on the slate this week that you look at and go, oh my God, this is going to set football back 35 years. This is not quite that bad, but like Texas A&M Arkansas might be a disaster. There's legitimate opportunity for that to be the worst SEC game of the entire season. Virginia at Boston College on the CW. Vomit.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
That's the dumpster juice game of the week.
Oh, absolutely. That is sickening. Absolutely gross. We talked about it with Paul. Arkansas State at UMass. Awful. Hideous. Just disgusting football. What else do we have here? There was one other game that really stood out to me as being terrible. Oh, Pitt, Virginia Tech is going to reek. That game is going to suck too. Ugh. So many bad, ugly games. Colorado State's hosting Utah Tech.
Yes.
Colorado State's going to win by 6 points and score like 11 for the game. That's how that game is going to go. Ugh.
Do you see where Colorado State, the kid who injured Travis Hunter, he and Travis Hunter bumped into each other at a bowling alley?
Yeah, they bowled together.
Yeah, then they went bowling, and they're friends. And Travis Hunter turned it into content because he is, I think, our first, athlete / YouTube content guy.
Hey.
You see he was on Twitch playing 2K when they were down 35-0.
I did see that. Probably not the best.
Maybe not
visual.
Not a great look. I think there's a certain generation that will roll their eyes at that. But hey, man, it's 35-0.
Hey, you're not there.
Yeah, you turned it off.
Let's flip over to the NFL real quick, and we'll talk some Chiefs football with Matt Derrick coming up at the bottom of this hour. On the NFL schedule, there are 2 games to me that stand out far and above anyone else on the schedule this week. Bills-Dolphins. Bills hosting the Dolphins. Noon kickoff on Sunday. And then it might be kind of ugly, but also a noon kickoff. Ravens-Browns. That game has a lot of meaning for the AFC North.
Yeah, the Browns defense is legitimately outstanding. And I think you might have a case right now if you wanted to argue that was the best defense in the NFL because they've played like it for the first few weeks of the season. They have been absolutely overwhelming.
Who knew that replacing all-time terrible coach Joe Woods with pretty good coach Jim Schwartz would make a difference? Who could have guessed that?
Yeah, no kidding. It almost it gets to where it's beside the point of their quarterback play, where Watson still hasn't played well, and obviously Nick Chubb's out for the year. But they won last week 27-3 because they just annihilated the Tennessee offense. Baltimore is still down a lot of guys. I don't know how healthy they're going to be. I haven't seen their injury report for Sunday, but this is a game Baltimore let last week get away. They can't let another one get away.
They really can't, because that's been their thing the last couple of years, right? And I know Lamar's been hurt. That's affected it too, but it's, hey, look at the Ravens. They're kind of nasty. This looks like a good team. And then, ooh, that's not a great loss, but it's all right. They're going to be fine. Ooh, that's another bad loss early. I feel like they've been the exact same team 2 years in a row. Hell, they're even super injured already this year. So it's been the same team 3 years in a row now, even with a different offensive coordinator. So no, I think that game is going to be especially interesting. Anything else to you that tickles your fancy at all? Kind of a weird NFL slate this week.
Falcons Jaguars in London. I think it's a must bounce back spot for the Jags. And if they can't win this game, I think it's time to maybe panic a little bit with regards to the Jaguars, maybe adjust your expectations pretty firmly downward after they got poleaxed by Houston last week. Other than that, though, it's not the most inspiring NFL slate to me. I think, Bears Broncos is perversely entertaining.
By the way, Bears will not have their two of their three best defensive backs, Eddie Jackson and Jalen Johnson, both out.
Slam that over button for this game.
Really? A Bears over?
A Broncos over.
Okay, fair.
They're both like, I think the Broncos could score 30 plus, and the total's 46. And I genuinely think the Broncos can score 30.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I also think their defense reeks, and that the Bears will be able to make some big plays in the run against their. That's way more than I ever wanted to talk about Bears Broncos. It's just perversely fascinating. They should play it while circus music plays in the background. It should be called P.T. Barnum's Chicago Bears versus Denver Broncos. That's what they should call this game. We also have a question from the text line from the 785.
Yep.
Dan, who's DePaul playing this weekend? Great question about my alma mater. We talk about yours all the time, Brennan. We never talk about my DePaul Fighting Tigers. 4-0 on the campaign, 3-0 at Blackstock Stadium. They got to go on the road, try and maintain their 2-0 record in the North Coast Athletic Conference against the Oberlin Yeomen. Oberlin stinks. DePaul's going to beat them by 40.
The Yeomen, that rules. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're the Yeomen. Oberlin, not known for a great athletic tradition, if you can believe that.
No, nerds. Smart school. But
music school.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah, like fine arts.
So is DePaul in the same conference with all those Ohio D3s? Oberlin and Worcester. And
Worcester,
Kenyon.
Wittenberg, Kenyon. What's Kenyon now? They're the Owls. They changed their mascot. They used to be the Lords and the Ladies, and now they're just the Owls.
That's kind of sick, though. I guess they're trying not to gender. One of those Ohio schools, like progressive. I get it.
Yeah,
but that's kind of a sick name.
But like Hiram is in the league. DePaul beat them 49-0. Ohio Wesleyan is in the league. Denison is in the league. I think the only schools that are not Ohio schools in that league are DePaul and Wabash.
Sad. Is Centenary still the gentlemen and ladies?
To my knowledge, yes.
All right. Well, that one stuck around. Let's get to a break. We've got to take a timeout. We'll talk more football coming up later on in the hour with Matt Derrick. Right now, though, we're going to get to a commercial break. We'll come back and we'll apologize for some bad takes earlier in the week. We've got On Second Thought coming up right here on 580 Sports Talk. Before we get to Matt Derrick and our Chiefs Insider here on 580 Sports Talk on this Red Friday, it's time for On Second Thought, time to offer up some of the takes we missed on in recent memory. Mine was pretty recently. Mine was yesterday during the 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, the only hour of 580 Sports Talk yesterday, in fact. Right before we spoke to Mitch Holthus, did what we usually do on Thursday shows, did a little Thursday night football preview. And I said that while there is a chance that the Packers might have an emotional letdown after, just 4 days after that crazy 17-point comeback to beat the Saints, still at home, all that momentum, there was a chance there could be a letdown. However, I thought they were playing well. I expected a big night from Jordan Love. I thought with Christian Watson and Aaron Jones back, the offense would be good. They'd score a lot of points, and they could not just cover the spread, but beat the Lions. They got their asses kicked up and down Lambeau Field in a sea of blue. It was all Lions fans last night in Green Bay.
Yeah, what was that about?
Well, we do not have time nor the market to explain the gold package and how obnoxious all the blue hairs from Milwaukee are. But just an awful, awful showing by the Packers last night. I was watching when I could, just pulling the Prime Video app on my phone out and just checking it during the timeouts in last night's high school game. Then I got to watch I sat in the parking lot for a while and watched the end of the game until Jordan Love's last interception. That sucked. I was very wrong about that because they got their butts kicked. Ugh. Brutal.
On second thought, we are now approaching the final weekend of the Major League Baseball season. 3 games left to go for everybody. 3 games and some innings left to go, I guess, if you're the Mets and the Marlins, because that game's important. And that's a whole thing. But I had many takes about the Royals that were wrong, but maybe the wrongest that bears pointing out on this segment is in regards to tonight's starting pitcher for the Royals as they open a 3-game series against New York Yankees. I thought when the Royals signed Jordan Lyles that he wouldn't light the world on fire. He wasn't going to get Cy Young votes. He wasn't going to be an ace or pitch like one, but I figured 30 competent starts, 180 serviceable innings, that the Royals were going to get what they paid for, a roughly average major league starting pitcher. He has been so far beyond worse than that, it almost beggars belief. He is 5-17 entering tonight, which leads the American League in defeats. He has a 6.24 ERA, which getting to pitch that many innings with an ERA like that is borderline irresponsible. He has given up a league high 119 earned runs. He's given up 38 home runs. That's 2 home runs per 9 innings.
Not great.
At Kauffman Stadium.
Not great.
Appallingly bad and a waste of money and time. And I was wrong. I thought that maybe, hey, he'd get to Kauffman Stadium. His gopher ball tendencies would diminish. No, they got worse. How does that happen? I was wrong about Jordan Lyles. I didn't think he'd be great, but I thought he'd be fine, and he was not fine.
No, he's actually quite awful. Really quickly, this is not a on second thought, and it doesn't have to do with anything. It's not apropos of anything. Today in the Bears locker room media session, a reporter asked Chase Claypool if he thought the team was using him using his talents in the best way possible, and he just said no. End of answer.
Good. Things are great.
I hope the Chiefs further broke the Bears. I find that very funny. I was wrong once thinking he was an okay NFL player. He's very, very bad. I'll make that on topic for you. We have to get to a break. Matt Derrick will hop on with us next for our Chiefs Insider on 580 Sports Talk. Derrick, and he covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. He joins us every Friday at this time for our Chiefs Insider on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Go follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and of course follow his great work covering the Chiefs over at ChiefsDigest.com. Matt, how's it going?
I'm just doing my best to make sure that I am not the next Taylor Swift beat writer. So other than that, I'm doing okay.
That wouldn't be a bad beat.
Like the plague.
I feel like that would be a pretty lucrative beat, at least.
Oh, it will probably be much more lucrative than what I'm doing right now. But
I will say, and I'm not
like
asking you to throw anyone in your line of work under the bus, Matt, but I sort of feel like a lot of NFL media has kind of turned into the Taylor Swift beat recently. So I feel like you're almost the niche reporter now, not getting into that.
You know, I kind of felt that way a little bit. I mean, I'm like, hey, let's just stick to football this week. Let's talk about some football and everything. I think that for the most part, the players in the locker room appreciate that because even the one person that I jokingly asked, they met Taylor Swift was like, no comment.
I think everybody is ready to get back to some football, and that includes the Kansas City Chiefs. They're looking for win number 3 in this first quarter of the season when they take on the Jets coming up on Sunday. Let's start big picture here, Matt. When you look at this Jets team, and boy, do they stink. I know they beat the Bills, but they're just a miserable watch, mostly because their quarterback is just unplayably bad. Their offensive line is awful. What does concern you the most? They've got playmakers outside of quarterback on offense. We know their defense is talented. They've slumped a little bit, but they're very talented. What worries you the most about this team?
I mean, if I were to plow a way to victory for the Jets, I mean, that's exactly how it would pretty much be described. I mean, I think they would have to absolutely run the ball effectively. Just get Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook and just switch them off, give them the ball, keep them moving the chains. I mean, if they're really able to put together a few long drives, don't, force Zach Wilson to have to do too much. Throw the ball a little bit to keep the defense honest. But if they found a way to move the ball effectively on the ground against the Chiefs and kind of chug up the game a little bit, find a way to force some turnovers, there's a path to victory. I mean, it's a pretty slim one because I think they have to play extremely well. But that's it. I mean, it's definitely establishing the run, protecting the football, and forcing the Chiefs to make mistakes on offense, which through the first 3 games of the season, they have done on occasion.
How healthy do you think Travis Kelce has looked progressively? Obviously didn't play in week 1. Week 2, 4 for 26 and a touchdown. Pretty light work in a game that only had a couple of touchdowns in it. And then last week, another touchdown, 7 catches, 69 yards. Production-wise, he's obviously on an upward trend. Do you feel like from what you've seen and from what we know from practice this week, like he really is getting closer to 100%?
Hello?
Matt, can you hear us? I think we might have, let's see one more time. Matt, can you hear us? And the call just dropped. So we will have to get back on the phone with Matt here in just a moment. Hey, that's radio for you folks sometimes. Sometimes technology fails us. It was failing us on the back end with the podcast page earlier, which, by the way, that is functioning and working again. So if you want to go check out the podcast, 580WIBW.com. That has never happened with us on the phone with Matt before. So we'll see if we can hop back on with him and get that taken care of here. And I think we've got Matt back on the horn. Double check. Matt, can you hear me now?
Hear you now. We're back.
Hey, no idea what just happened there, but hey, that's live radio for you. I was just asking, Travis Kelce, health-wise, how close to 100% do you think he is?
It's a great question because I think there's a couple of ways you could look at it and answer it. I mean, one is how much of the usual Travis Kelce that you expect, and maybe the other one is just how much is the almost 34-year-old Travis Kelce, because I think there may be 2 different answers. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, watching Travis through training camp and through the first part of the season, I think it's getting harder for him. I mean, it's definitely he's taking more punishment this year. I think you can definitely see that. I don't know that I can chalk up anything to the offseason. I know it was a busier offseason than he has usually had, but I think the biggest part of it is just, the age. I mean, it's bound to catch up with him sooner or later. And I think we definitely have reached a point where obviously he's not getting stronger and faster and any of those things. I mean, I think the body is starting to wear down on him a little bit, but he's also still one of the toughest guys around. So how much could he be of himself right now? I mean, I'd hate to downgrade him maybe more than 80% because I think he's playing that well, but And he had I thought a really good game last week. But I think that you're definitely seeing that we're past peak Travis Kelce. Now, past peak Travis Kelce, don't get me wrong, it's still going to be a really, really good tight end. It's just maybe not going to be the 1,400-yard guy anymore. It's going to be something less than that. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if eventually at some point he would concede to us that maybe it's getting a little bit harder and maybe this year feels a little bit harder. I don't know if he would concede that or not. But from watching him and just watching the way he moves in between plays and the way he moves at the end of plays, I don't think you see it during the action. I think it's definitely in between. You can see that things are creeping up on him a little bit. And I know he has taken a ton of punishment the last couple of years, and especially I think even this season he's continued to take a lot of punishment in addition to the injury.
Our guest is Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider from ChiefsDigest.com, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline, as he does every Friday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Again, check out Matt's work at ChiefsDigest.com. Find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, no Nick Bolton for a second straight week as he continues to deal with the ankle injury. Is there starting to be some long-term concern about that, or is there hope that he can be back by week 5?
Yeah, it certainly seems like he could be back sooner than later. I've seen him in the locker room this week, and frankly, looks like he's doing okay. He's not in a boot or anything like that. So you really get the sense that this is maybe just overly protective. I mean, if the Chiefs were playing maybe the Bills or the Bengals this week, maybe you see Nick Bolton. I could see that. I think that they're just being very protective with a lot of their injuries. I mean, Kadarius Toney probably could have been playing through the toe, but they limited him to 2 snaps last week. Chris Jones, had a little twinge with the groin, so they backed him off a little bit. He played 16 snaps last week and have, backed him off a little bit during this week during practice. I think we're just seeing a lot of maybe load management right now. And like I said, I mean, I don't get into the sense that there's anything long-term with Nick. I think if the stakes were higher, they'd probably be pushing him a little bit more. But since they're not, and it's early in the season, and I think that they realize just how much that he's important to what they want to do later in the year, I think they're just trying to help him along and get him back to 100, as close to 100% as they can before they push him back in.
How do you think the defense looked and will look on Sunday with Drew Tranquill with the green dot?
I thought it looked really good on Sunday against the Bears. I don't think you saw a lot of confusion or anything, any miscommunication. Don't make any mistake. I mean, Drew Tranquill is a really smart guy. I mean, you can tell, even just talking to him, that he's an intellectual guy. I mean, he's just like Justin Reed. He's another chess player. So and you can see that mind. I mean, he's working, a couple of moves in advance when he's on the field, and did a really good job, I thought, directing traffic. The hardest thing for him is really just picking up all the calls and all the defense and all the nuances that are different with Steve Spagnuolo. And there's a lot to it, but, he's had a few months now, and he's a sharp guy. So I think you've seen him pick up more of it and maybe pick it up faster than probably anybody else that we've seen. So I don't necessarily know that he knows as much as Nick Bolton at this point, but there's no doubt. I mean, Tranquill, I think his high football IQ is really paying off at this point for the Chiefs.
Have you ever heard Andy Reid as frustrated by a penalty situation as he was coming out of week 3 with the calls against Jawan Taylor at right tackle? It was pretty clear immediately following the game. And then when we heard from him again on Monday, he feels like Jawan Taylor's being profiled, that he's being singled out a little bit. Have you ever seen Andy Reid get that upset about something regarding officiating, regarding one of his players?
I thought the same thing, man. And I tried to go back and remember anything. And I recall a few times when he's maybe walked up to the line where even maybe he's backed off and just said, well, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to pay any money. I think he's done that a couple of times that I can remember, but never to the point that he did, especially the next day, just saying, hey, after I looked at the film, I'm going to double down on what I said last night, that he's getting picked on. And I think the numbers honestly back that up. I think that there has been one illegal shift called on another tackle in the league this year, and Jawan's had 3 of them called on him. And I'm looking around the league and I'm seeing a lot of tackles do it just as maybe egregious as he does. If the argument wants to be that Jawan has been, more egregious than some others, I guess I could listen to it, but I don't know. I mean, there were at least one of those calls on Sunday against him I thought that on the other side, that Donovan Smith looked about lined up in the exact same position as he was. And then watching the Bears in between, I mean, I think their tackles look pretty similar. So I think that was definitely Andy Reid, in the most Andy Reid way possible, saying, back off my guy. You made your point. You got accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. You've gotten in his head. You've slowed him down. You've moved him up a little bit. It's what's done is done. And now he's playing it just like a lot of other guys around the league. And that would be my point, is that if the NFL really wants to crack down on it, there's other guys need to be looking at them too than just Juwan Taylor. If that's the only guy they're going to call penalties on, it's not going to change anything.
Our guest is Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick. Let's start to look ahead again to Sunday night against the Jets. And it's been a bit of a guessing game through the first 3 weeks of the season as to which wide receiver for the Chiefs is going to see the most targets, the highest quality targets, the targets near the goal line. It has to be endlessly frustrating if you're the kind of person who plays fantasy football and owns a Chiefs wide receiver, which free advice, don't do that. You don't have to. Go find another team's wide receivers and don't play that game right now. But for you, Matt, looking ahead to this Jets matchup, who do you see as a wide receiver that has the potential to get a good matchup and be really involved in the game plan?
Well, first of all, I want to underline exactly what you said. Don't own Chiefs receivers. So that's the best policy right there. But honestly, I mean, right now, it is so hard to project because I'm not even sure if you can really, glean anything into the game plans and say, okay, well, this is going to be a big week for this guy. I mean, Marquez, remember, had a big touchdown taken away from him on one of those Juwan penalties, or his numbers could look completely different, not only last week, but for the season. And it would probably surprise a lot of people when I tell you that from the receiver group, that Rashee Rice leads this team in receptions outside Travis Kelce, and Justin Watson leads the team in yards with 158. I mean, I think that's what we're going to get. I mean, is there he's the one guy, at least at this point, that's been somewhat consistently getting the ball, but I'm not even sure that will be the case when Kadarius Toney gets back to full health. And that's part of it too, right there, is that, if they had Toney, Moore, and Rice all ready to go and we're getting the bulk of the work and everybody else was just kind of getting their packages in, I think it would maybe look a little bit different. But at the same time, Sky Moore and Marquez have not, separated themselves in any way as far as putting up big numbers. And at least from Marquez, I mean, looking at the back of his football card, he is what he is. I mean, I expect at the end of the season, he's going to be, between 600 and 700 yards. It's where he almost always is. Is there somebody who can break out? Rashee's got potential. I mean, it's still hard to say that just based on, hey, he's a little, 30, 35 yards a game right now. To say that all of a sudden, is that going to be more than that? I mean, I think he's got potential. The only challenge is that, is there 1,000-yard receiver in this room in this point in their career right now? I think the answer is no. I mean, I could be surprised at the end of the season, but at this point, I'd be stunned if anybody got close to 1,000 yards. Maybe I might be surprised if any of them got to 800.
Chatting with Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. It's our Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Go check out all of his coverage of the Kansas City Chiefs over at ChiefsDigest.com. All right, Matt, what's your score prediction for this weekend? The Chiefs are favored by 9.5. Can they get it done?
I think they can. I mean, I feel like that number is pretty reachable, and I think the line is obviously moving towards the Jets, which makes me really want to even bet more on the Chiefs because I always like getting bets against the public. But you look at it on both sides. I mean, the Chiefs are the better team in every single phase. Could the Jets slow them down? Could the Jets defense be a little bit of a hiccup? Yeah. And that's one thing I definitely want to see is, can the Chiefs offense sustain what they did last week against Chicago, because this is a better group. But I think the Jets offense versus the Chiefs defense is a complete and total mismatch, especially the way the Chiefs are playing right now. I think the defense gets back into its red zone winning succession. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs 27-6.
That's pretty close to pretty close to both of us. I had 27-13. Dan had 23-10.
we're all got the Chiefs. We're all bored on 27.
Is this like the NFL Network?
Get in the end zone.
Is this like the NFL Network ESPN game picks graphic issue? Like everyone picks the same team and then it goes the other way?
You do hate to see that, but I think this one is this is a hard one for the Chiefs not to pick up.
All right, Matt, last thing I've got for you, non-Chiefs, but stays with the NFL. Are you going to get up early to watch the Toy Story NFL game coming up on Sunday?
I would probably say no. Because the Chiefs playing at night, and there's no way on God's green earth that I want to get up any earlier than I have to when there's a night game.
I respect that.
Yeah, no, I feel that completely. I have, let's say, unorthodox sleeping habits generally. So on Sundays, usually after I'm up to like 3:45, 4 o'clock on Saturday night, usually I don't wake up till like 15 minutes before kickoff, if I'm being honest with you.
That's solid. And you know what? I mean, I guess it could depend on just how badly the United States is getting, kicked in the Ryder Cup too. So
that's true. Have you been following along?
I was following along very sadly today. That was not a lot of fun.
Yeah, it may not be worth following along much longer after today's bloodbath there at Marco Simone.
Hey, if they only played 17 holes, we'd be in great shape.
Yeah, that's a fact.
I as a non-golf guy, I have not been following, but that makes it sound like when people joke online, wow, if they only played one half of football games, X team would be a lot better.
Well, if they only played 6 innings of baseball game, the Rockies would be going to the playoffs.
There you go.
Matt Derrick covers the Kansas City Chiefs and does so for ChiefsDigest.com. Go check out his work there. Follow him on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick. He joins us at this time every Friday to talk Chiefs during our Chiefs Insider on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Matt, we appreciate the time as always. Enjoy Sunday Night Football and try to avoid the Taylor Swift discourse as much as you can.
I will do my best. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody.
That's Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com, the absolute best. Matt Derrick.
FYI, Chiefs fans attending Sunday night's game at MetLife Stadium will not, in fact, be receiving Taylor Swift-themed friendship bracelets.
So is that a rumor? I just saw a tweet from a Jets beat writer about that. Was that
was
out there?
Something that was created entirely out of whole cloth on the internet and has been debunked.
Why would that happen? I guess if you are...
When does the visiting fan get anything at somebody else's stadium?
Well, when you're not inviting NFL fans to your discussion about your league, I guess that's the kind of thing that happens. Coming up on the other side of our national and local news, we've got this week's game picks and our September championship and what is wrong with you here on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, halfway home on a feel-good Friday afternoon on 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He's Dan Lucero. We're with you until 6 o'clock this evening when we've got I almost said K-State. I was thinking about I think it's next Friday or 2 Fridays from now when K-State plays on a Friday.
That's next Friday.
Yeah, that's next week. We have Royals baseball tonight.
Still, jar.
Yeah, I know. I've had quite a day. Great foreshadowing for the football game I will be calling tonight, I'm sure.
Get all the mistakes out of the way early.
Yeah, that's true. Just get through it. I was notoriously terrible in practice when I played basketball growing up. Like I was a junior high basketball player, notoriously awful in practice. Now, by the same token, I was also awful in games, but that was just regular awful.
How many times have you heard the story about a pitcher's got nothing in their pregame warm-up in the bullpen, and they go out and they throw a shutout? Happens all the time. So for your sake, I'm going to hope that is what I'm dealing with today. But appreciate you guys for hanging out with us today. Plenty to get to in this back half of the show before we get to Royals baseball tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7:10 first pitch over on Country 106.9, 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock kickoff. We've got the Lewis Toyota High School football game of the week, one of the greatest rivalries in the state, the War on 24. Silver Lake visiting Rossville, just 5 miles separate these century-long rivals. They'll go at it once again tonight. Winner for Silver Lake in overtime a year ago. They've won 5 of the last 8, but Rossville won 3 in a row from 2020 through 2021. Can't wait for that one tonight. Myself, Greg, and Dan will be on the call that over on Country 106.9 with a 7 o'clock kickoff. In this 4 o'clock hour of the show, we've got our game picks for this week. Our 2 NFL, 2 college football, and wild card picks, plus Survivor pool picks. We all lost in Survivor last week. We did.
So thankfully, we all came up with we all agreed upon the 1 mulligan rule. So we're all still alive. But now it is true cutthroat Survivor. Now you lose and you're out. And the Cowboys, the Ravens, and the Jaguars, they screwed us all over.
Yeah, they sure did.
Not a great week for them. We'll get to our What Is Wrong With You championship for the month of September. And we'll hear from Devin Neal coming up in the 4 o'clock hour as well. The star running back for the Kansas Jayhawks. Got to speak to him this week. Really looking forward to hearing from Devin. We'll take your text, 785-272-9429. And we will also get to your YouTube comments. YouTube channel is called 580 Sports Talk. Go subscribe. Check out the channel. You can watch the live stream video edition of the show and hang out in the comment section. One comment from Vance on YouTube. He says, is this a down year for Silver Lake? Silver Lake actually comes into this game with a better record. They're 3-1. Rossville just 2-2. Rossville, after back-to-back losses, let out some frustration last week when they took on Atchison County Community High School and laid 70 on the Tigers while not allowing a single point. They gave up 4 passing yards in the game. 4. They whooped them 70-0. Silver Lake is 3-1 coming into tonight. They have played some barn burners the last couple of weeks. St. Mary's, the reigning 1A champs, as well as Rock Creek a week ago. 2 wins, both come from behind wins. They were down 21-7 last week against Rock Creek. They ended up winning that one 38-35. They were down 12-7 at half to St. Mary's, came back and won that one by 1 at 29-28. I'm excited tonight. This is going to be a lot of fun. My first War on 24, I'm getting the call. So very much looking forward to that one coming up tonight. Let's get to the college and pro ranks, though, Dan. Let's get to our game picks for the week. Why don't we start with the NFL picks, as we normally do? We'll get through Jake's here quickly. He's going Cincinnati minus 2.5 on the road against Tennessee. I believe it's in Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. That's in Nashville.
I think that's correct.
Can check for you right now. And yes, that game is in Nashville. I mean, how good is Burrow going to be? If he's feeling better, Cincinnati should win.
This feels more like a bet against a team than for a team.
Okay.
And I think it's a strong bet against a Tennessee team that just looks lifeless on offense right now.
Fair.
I think Cincinnati's offense is not what we have seen the past couple of years because of the physical limitations that Joe Burrow has playing with that injury.
Yeah.
But can Tennessee score? Especially if the Bengals got their defense figured out, because they were tremendous against the Rams.
Yeah.
And Tennessee's offensive line isn't all that much better than what the Rams were throwing out there on Monday night either. So laying less than a field goal with the better team is usually a pretty good play.
Yeah, that's fair. You two also have a similar pick this week.
I hate this.
Monday Night Football.
It is. It's a Monday game, which we never pick. And
you get Buck and Aikman. Big game feel.
It's the Seahawks and the Giants in New York. And this line, I believe, has jumped the fence twice. I think originally the Seahawks were favored. Then the line swung to the Giants laying 1.5, and now it's all the way back to Seattle laying 1.5.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's been quite a week for that point spread. Lots of money on that one. I just think Seattle's better than the Giants. I don't know.
Agreed.
If Saquon Barkley is going to play. If he does, I'd imagine he wouldn't be full speed. They're just getting him back to working out and practicing this week. So I would imagine that even if they got Barkley on the field Monday night, he'd be diminished. And I think Seattle can score a lot of points, and I'm not sure the Giants can. I don't think Seattle's defense is great, Shakes. I kind of like the over 44.5 in this game too, but the Seattle should win this game. Like if they're the team that I think most people expected them to be this season, this is a game they should go and win.
What's the name of the defensive coordinator now? I know it's not Ken Norton anymore.
It is Clint Hurt.
Clint Hurt, that's right. You were tweeting about him the other day. Thoughts?
Yes. I just don't understand why we're so bad against the pass, man. Like we shouldn't be this bad against the pass. We got good safeties. Mm-hmm. Here I am saying we, like I play for the damn team. They got
I do the same. You're good.
That's how fired up it gets me. We got good safeties. We should be much better. We have good corners. We should be much better against the pass than we are, which frustrates me. But the pass rush still isn't like great. They have improved against the run. That was very necessary. They appear to be much improved against the run, which
That's
is
good.
Bringing Bobby Wagner back helped. Who would have thunk it? But they got to be better against the pass. Good news is Daniel Jones stinks. So this would be maybe a get-right game and, hey, a chance to get Jamal Adams back, and I think he's going to help the defense.
Man, I get why they felt like they had to pay him, because if you have to find a new quarterback and a new best offensive player, a la Saquon Barkley, that undoes a lot of the work you put in this past season, and I get that. But damn, man, he sucks. He's just not a good NFL player.
He's not.
Yeah, it's brutal. What else you got for the NFL?
My other NFL pick this week is the London game. I think I mentioned it earlier in the last hour. I think this is a get-right spot for Jacksonville against an Atlanta team that I just don't think is very good offensively. Desmond Ridder, I don't think is a very good quarterback. I know they can run the ball, but Jacksonville fairly stout, I think, against the run, and I think they'll hold up well enough. And I think Jacksonville's offense will have a good day against the Atlanta defense. I don't think this will be a blowout by any means, but I think Jacksonville wins by at least 4+ points. So I will lay 3 with Jacksonville in London.
Are you any interested at all in the Lunder for this week? The London under.
What is the total on this game?
That is a great question. I need to pull that up. Because I am always intrigued by that line, because it's hard. Body clocks, man. It's hard. It is hard to play over there.
And I believe I bet on Jacksonville last year in London. They lost to the Broncos. So there's some unfortunate precedent here. Total is 43.5 at FanDuel. It's 43 in some other places.
Yeah, I would lean with that under.
Yeah, I kind of like that under too.
I would definitely lean with that under. All right, my 2 NFL picks for you this week. I'm going with 2 dogs. 1 at home, Carolina +4 against Minnesota. The lines are gross this week in the NFL. Carolina underdog by 4 at home against Minnesota. Minnesota is probably better than their 0-3 record. They're not as good as they were last year, as their record indicated they were last year. Their defense sucks. Carolina will get Bryce Young back. I like Bryce Young a lot. I don't know that Carolina's going to be any good this year. I don't know that I'd feel any different about this if Andy Dalton was still at quarterback for Carolina this week. I am going to take Carolina, though, in a bounce-back performance. I think they're going to keep getting better week after week. I don't like Minnesota at all. Giving me more than a field goal at home, I'll take Carolina there. I don't love this next pick. I bet on Washington a week ago, and that blew up in my face because they were a 5.5-point dog, and they lost by about 600 points. They're an underdog by 8.5 points against the Eagles. 8 in the hook. The Eagles are the better team. No doubt about that. They are a better team. Divisional matchup. Washington knows very well what Philadelphia wants to do. As much as Jack Del Rio, I think, is far past his prime as a coordinator, I do think that that team has a good defensive identity. They've got good talent. Ron Rivera is a good defensive coach as well. I think they can keep Philly from really exploding on them and giving up tons of points for a second week in a row. And Philly doesn't blow teams out a whole lot. They let teams linger around because they get up big. It's very similar to last year. They get up big, they wear you down, and then they take their foot off the gas in the fourth quarter, and they let you back into games. I'll ride with that momentum, that particular element of this, and I'll say Washington keeps it within 8 and a hook.
Hey, didn't you take points with Washington last week?
Yes, and they gave up 600, and they lost, and it was embarrassing. And we got about a quarter and a half in, and I thought, well, I'm glad I used a no-sweat bet on that one, so I can use that for something else later today.
Yeah, I don't know about Sam Howell, man. I don't think he's it. I think that's a crummy team.
Crummy.
I think they're bad.
I'm willing to give Howell half the year before I make a firm decision. It's trending negatively. I can say that with affirmation. It is trending in the wrong direction. But I'll give him at least a little bit more time before I'm all the way out on him. College football picks. Let's start with you. What do you got?
College football. I am laying 14 points with Maryland against Indiana. Maryland is undefeated. They can really score it. IU is gutter water. They are really, really bad.
4 overtimes versus Akron at home.
Yeah, this is a home game for Maryland, too. I think they're going to just score bushels of points and blow out Indiana in this game.
I like this Maryland team. I like them a lot.
Yeah, September Maryland is typically very frisky. And I know that the calendar will eventually turn to October and they'll play some good teams and probably get exposed. But it's a frisky early season Maryland team. And I think they're going to crush Indiana. They're going, the Hoosiers going in the wrong direction. We also got Air Force laying 10.5 against San Diego State. San Diego State is really bad at stopping the run. That would seem to be an issue against a service academy, particularly a good one with an outstanding defense. Air Force, don't look now, but that might be your group of 5 team in the New Year's Six issue.
Oh!
That is a genuinely excellent football team. It might be Troy Calhoun's best. They have found ways in the last couple of years to lose games they shouldn't lose, and they wind up 10-2 or 9-3, and they're out of that conversation by season's end. Maybe not this year. This might be the one that ends up playing in the New Year's Six. So Air Force laying 10.5 to San Diego State.
How about that? All right, my picks in the college game for this week. I've got 2 big favorites. Georgia minus 14.5 against Auburn. Auburn sucks, dog. They are bad. Just, they don't have a quarterback. The quarterbacks they do have are trash. It's just not a good team. I don't think Georgia's anywhere close to how good it can be as well. They've also played nobody. Auburn's kind of a nobody this year. So give me Georgia by 14.5 there.
Can't stop thinking about early Kyler featuring T-Pain. I like driving in my truck. Auburn sucks.
It's true. It's 100% true. Early Kyler.
I don't particularly care for Auburn.
Yeah, Georgia by a bunch in that game. And also, I'm going to keep riding the Michael Penix train, man. Washington, 19.5 point favorites over Arizona. I do not care. Arizona, competitive under Jed Fish. They're going to become the fish food this week, not the Huskies. 19.5. They can throw the ball as well as any team in the country. They've got 3 number 1 wide receivers on that team. They are unbelievable.
That might be like absolute chaos. Like, I think that game's going to be super fun, and I wouldn't want anything to do with betting it because I just think there is the absolute chaos potential in the air. Some real classic Colombian uncut Pac-12 after dark going on in that game.
Yeah. I think Washington is truly that good. And I know college football, gambling, that's not really how it works all the time, but I really just think they're that much of a powerhouse this year. Jake's college football picks, he's going with Notre Dame minus 5.5 over Duke. And he's got BYU as a 1.5 point dog against Cincinnati tonight.
And I'm not just saying this because Jake went 5-0 last week, but I think I'm going to tail him on both of these games.
Oh,
I don't understand for the life of me why BYU's a home dog to Cincinnati. And that line has jumped the fence too.
Mm-hmm.
That line opened with BYU laying points. Now they're getting points at home. They got a couple of injuries on their offensive line. Maybe that's why, because Cincinnati's defensive line is the best unit on that team. That worries me a little bit. I watched Cincinnati last week,
mm-hmm.
and they get to the red zone and just mess their pants. They have no idea what to do once they get the ball inside the 20-yard line, and they just leave a lot of money on the table. And also, I don't think Emory Jones is very good. I think Keaton Slovis is good. I will take the better quarterback at home if I'm getting points with the better quarterback.
I think that's fair.
And then Notre Dame, like we talked about this a little earlier, Duke's going to be hyped, but can they hang for 60 minutes with Notre Dame's athletes? That's my big question there, and I'm skeptical. I would love to see Notre Dame lose. That would rule. Duke beating Notre Dame in football in prime time with College game day there. Like, that would be one of the coolest things that ever happened.
Yeah, it'd be pretty sick.
But I just think Notre Dame's got better players.
All right, wild card picks for the week. I've also got a game tonight. I talked about this earlier. Utah, Oregon State under 44.5. I think this is going to be a knockdown, drag out, physical, defensive kind of game. Utah does not want to score. Utah is content to score 14 to 17 points and then just massacre you, beat you to death defensively after that. That's literally what they did last week. They scored 14 points in a hurry, and it looked like they were just going to maul UCLA, and then they just sat on them for another 55 minutes or whatever it was and just flattened the ball and just took it completely out of the game. UCLA had no chance against that defense. I like Oregon State, even off a loss last week to Washington State, which I don't think was as close as the final score would indicate. I still like that team. I like their physicality, love their run game. They'll give Utah some problems. Still no Cam Rising. That is an issue for Utah. It is hard for them to score points without Cam Rising at quarterback because their backups, not good. So I like a low-scoring game there tonight in Corvallis. I'll take the under Utah and Oregon State. Again, 44 and a hook there. Jake, unsurprisingly, he floundered on this week. I would like the record to show he floundered on making this pick, but for the fourth week in a row, he's going over Justin Jefferson receiving yards. This week, the number is 102.5.
Not a bad bet. I mean, Carolina's secondary is not spectacular. DK Metcalf had 112 yards on 6 catches against them last week. So, yeah, I could see Justin Jefferson going off and having another 100-yard plus game.
I could see it.
I'm going with the over in Miami Buffalo. No Jalen Phillips for Miami. No Jordan Poyer for Buffalo.
Ew.
Those are two pretty important defensive players. And I think that with those guys out on both sides, the ingredients line up for a whole bunch of points. So I will take the over. There is one book you can get even odds on the over.
Really?
Yes.
Dang.
In fact, there are several books where you can get even odds on the over.
That's kind of odd. I would think that would be the more popular pick. I guess maybe people are banking on that result from the second meeting last season when the Bills really shut down the Dolphins. I think this is a better Dolphins team, though.
Yeah, better Dolphins offense. A little more complete. They can obviously run the ball really well.
Yeah.
We'll see about game script. I mean, the Dolphins run the ball so effectively they eat up more clock and there are fewer possessions.
That could be.
That's certainly a possibility. But again, no Poyer, I think, really limits the Bills' ability to limit Miami's passing game over the top, and no Phillips limits the Dolphins' ability to effectively rush the passer, which you have to do if you want to slow down the Bills.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
I do. I think there'll be a lot of points in that game.
All right, Survivor picks for the week. We all lost, as I said last week. Every single one of us. A big, fat turd. We all lost. Jake lost with the Cowboys. They were upset by the Cardinals. Dan lost the Jags. What is going on with the Jaguars?
I don't know, man.
I lost with Baltimore.
It could just be that C.J. Stroud's really good.
Hey, and if that's the case, good for him. Good for him.
Man, Houston's getting 3 at home against a Pittsburgh team that kind of smells.
Yeah, they kind of do. I don't know, man. Kenny Pickett, first time he threw multiple touchdown passes in a game last week. Can you believe that? That's wild. Truly, truly wild. All right. Jake is going with San Francisco, the 49ers. They are taking on the Cardinals. Betting against the Cardinals 2 weeks in a row after they just beat Jake's pick is a unique strategy, but he's going to ride with it.
It's like that goofy meme. I'll do it again. I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the Washington Commanders.
And I am going to go with my least favorite Survivor pick probably of my entire life. I am going with the Denver Broncos, folks. I am going Broncos over the Bears. This is probably my last good chance to take one of these really crappy teams. I will not get another good chance, I think, to take the Broncos at some point this year, unless, something unforeseeable happens. So might as well take them while I have the chance. They're favored. The Bears are absolute toilet water. I am not going to feel guilty about picking against the Chicago Bears. So I will take Denver as my Survivor pick.
To clarify, a listener asks from the 785 about the Survivor picks. The pool does not restart, so we still cannot pick a team that we have previously picked. We are still adhering to Survivor pool rules. We're just giving ourselves a mulligan. because we want to be able to talk about this for longer.
Yeah, and I'm going to be completely frank with you guys. I think openness is very important. Content is king in this business.
Yes.
And if we don't have content, you end up with, like, the July Kansas City Royals. Like,
yeah,
do you know they were bad guys?
Yeah. You don't, my 6-part series on what the Royals outfield should look like next year, that's going to have to wait for another time.
So that is how we're going to roll with Survivor this week. We'll see if anyone can make it through after a dud last week. That'll do it for this week's game picks. Coming up on the other side of this break, the championship for the month of September and what is wrong with you right here on 580 Sports Talk. It's that special time of month, folks. Our championship for the month of September in What Is Wrong With You. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. 4 stellar stories from the last month. We'll go head-to-head. We'll do 2 quick semifinals, and then we'll pick our champion from there. Of course, I want to remind you that What Is Wrong With You is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to your metal at Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Our first semifinal, our most recent weekly champion from this week, it is 12 Days in the Clink, a woman who got really drunk down in the Villages in Florida to the point where she laid down on a public bench and whizzed in her pants. The cops were called to try to get her to calm down and go home. They called her husband. Her husband shows up and says, "Honey, let's get you in the car." She starts screaming at him, gets in the car, then jumps back out. She's putting her finger in the police officers' faces, yelling at them, cursing at them. And then in the ultimate show of indignity for her husband, she pulled his pants down in front of everybody. She was arrested for disorderly conduct after this episode, and her husband said, "You know what? I'm going to make you think about what you've done alone. Enjoy jail, babe." 12 days in jail before he bailed her out.
Those had to be the best 12 days of that man's life, man. He had all the husband meals. He got to go to all the places that his wife doesn't like to go to. He got to wake up whenever he wanted. He didn't have to do any chores. He ate out every night.
Oh, you hate Buffalo Wild Wings? Guess what? I ate it 3 nights in a row. I might do a 4th, maybe even a 5th.
He got pizza boxes sitting all over the place. He hadn't worn pants in days.
Not a single washed dish for miles and miles. So that is our first story. Dan, why don't you go ahead with our second semifinalist here, the Naked Bills fan.
Yeah, we got Bills Mafia member went a little too hard. A cocktail of cocaine, marijuana, and LSD
cocaine
before a Bills game at Highmark Stadium. goodness knows what was running through his head as he entered a porta potty and proceeded to cover himself with the contents of said portable toilet. Then he took off all his clothes and jumped over a 10-foot fence surrounding the construction site of the eventual new stadium for the Buffalo Bills. Then he fell down a pit. And then he fell down an even bigger pit. How much bigger? 30 feet below grade. He fell 30 feet, and all he had to show for it were a few cuts on his head. And as the sheriff's office helicopter descended on the scene, the gentleman gave them a peace sign with one hand and a different kind of peace sign with the other hand.
Oh my God, this story is funny. I think this one's going to get my call for this one.
Yeah, I think we can't do the tie goes to sobriety because neither party here was particularly sober. But this guy fell 30 feet. I want to see the new Bills Stadium now. I want to see it now. I want to see the house that Josh Allen built now, while covered in Porta-John leavings.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's an easy winner for me for this first semifinal.
And imagine being the officer. You have to apprehend that, but it's naked and smells like what it probably smells like.
Oh,
which is
reeks.
Unimaginable.
Yeah, just disgusting.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I hope they let that officer take the rest of the day off.
All right, our second semifinal. I'll do the story I brought first. The human hamster wheel. The gentleman from Florida who has now done this multiple times. He is facing... and his name is Reza Bellucci. He is facing federal charges after the U.S. Coast Guard spotted him 70 nautical miles off of Tybee Island, Georgia, back on August 26th in what is called a homemade hydropod. It is a large mesh metal canister with buoys attached to the end of it. His goal was to make it all the way across to England. He said he wanted to get to London, which would also require him at some point getting into a river because London's not on the coast. So he was going to at some point have to get on smaller waterways. That wasn't going to work. It is a human-powered hamster wheel-like contraption. And do we still have, I don't think we have the picture up and ready. No, I don't have it on me right now because we got a new computer in here. But, I mean, it looks like what we're calling it. It's a human hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And apparently, he was just going to try to walk in this wheel all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, 3,000 miles from South Georgia to England, with no way to keep food. It's mesh metal. It's going to just leak right through the entire time. What if it rains? What if there is a storm? What if there is a stiff wind? A wind above 15 knots. What are you going to do? Die. That's what you're going to do. You're going to die. And by the way, when Coast Guard officers told Bellucci that they were going to cut his, quote, manifestly unsafe voyage short, he threatened to kill himself if anyone tried to apprehend him, and then claimed to have a bomb. Well, he did not have a bomb. 3 days later, finally, Bellucci surrendered. So he's just sitting out there in the ocean, 70 miles off the coast for 3 days, just chilling, drinking salt water, hanging with the dolphins.
So he's got a Facebook page called Run with Reza. And on June 13th, he posted some pictures of himself in a boat or by a boat and says, testing out different kinds of boats. Should I just sail to Europe? Running in a bubble sounds pretty intense. There were 4 comments on the page. One of them by a gentleman named Jim Stecky with all of the words capitalized reads, "Go Reba, don't let them take your dream." He didn't.
Nope.
He didn't let them take his. Well, he did, but he didn't. He decided he was going to do it. He was going to run across the Atlantic Ocean in a hamster wheel.
A hamster wheel. All right. And our second story from DraftKings.
Yes, the Never Forget parlay on September 11th. Somebody at DraftKings thought it would be a good idea to advertise a 3-way money line parlay for the Jets to beat the Patriots, the Mets to win, and the Yankees to win, and call it the Never Forget parlay. I forget what the odds were for this particular parlay.
650-ish?
Yeah, something like that. 651, I think. A 9/11 themed parlay. What better way to honor those who lost their lives on September 11th than betting on this doomed season for the New York Mets. By the way, the Mets lost, so you would not have hit this parlay if you had played it. DraftKings quickly removed it from the app and website and apologized for the insensitivity.
Just so freaking dumb. So
one
dumb.
Of the all-time dumbest.
Hire an editor, please.
What was very funny is in all of these screenshots, you can see a lot of people played the bet.
I bet they did.
The highest number visible, 926 people were like, yes, this is what I will do.
I need this.
Solemnly pressing the button on their phone, maybe taking off their hat while they did it.
All right, who you got here?
Much as I love the never forget parlay, this guy really had a moment where he said, maybe I'll just vote on his Facebook page. And I said, no, don't let them take your dreams.
I like to think Jim Stecky encouraged this to happen. He's the real reason behind this.
2 of the 4 comments are from Jim Stecky. The other one says, hey, buddy, hope all is well. Lynn Walsh commented, yes, sail to Europe if you value your life.
Whoa. A little extreme. All right, I'm with you. Human hamster wheel wins there. We got the naked Bills fan who fell 30 feet naked on every drug. Or the guy who tried to walk in a hamster wheel across the Atlantic Ocean from Georgia to England.
Oh, this is tough. I really like both of these stories.
I'll jump in first.
Okay.
I'm going to go with the human hamster wheel. And the big reason why, this guy has done this multiple times. He has tried multiple times to walk in this thing large ocean distances, like including from Florida to New York at one point. It has never worked. The fact that he was just chilling out in the ocean for 3 days before he got apprehended. And also he was sober.
Yeah.
As far as we are aware. This Bills fan was on everything.
Was he just doing an experiment on himself? I can't imagine thinking, I want to do cocaine, but I also want to do marijuana to,
what could be
mellow
fun
out.
about going to a football game on all those drugs?
Absolutely nothing. But people do it all the time. Well, maybe not that all the time, but people love to just shred themselves mentally. Like, I'm going to do cocaine because I want to boost, but I'm also going to do marijuana because I want to chill, but also I want to do LSD because I want to see stuff.
Oh my God. All right. What's your vote?
The human hamster wheel is just such the visual is great.
It is.
And the thought that he was going to threaten to take his own life if they wouldn't let him try and marathon his way across the ocean in a tin can.
That is our winner. The human hamster wheel makes it all the way through the month of September. It is our September champion in What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Let's get to a break. On the other side of this timeout, we will chat with Devin Neal, starting running back for the Kansas Jayhawks. He'll join us next on 580 Sports Talk. Welcome back to 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you this afternoon as we get ready for a major tilt down in Austin coming up on Saturday as the Kansas Jayhawks, the 24th ranked Kansas Jayhawks, take on the 3rd ranked Texas Longhorns. Afternoon kick, national TV, all that good stuff. And to talk about this game, to talk about all of the phenomenal success for the Kansas Jayhawks so far this year, we welcome in Lawrence native, KU's leading rusher, and in my opinion, one of the best running backs in the entire Big 12, if not the whole country, Devin Neal. And Devin, first thing I've got for you, as you just look back over these first 4 weeks, an impressive win over BYU a weekend ago, wins on the road, wins at home. How much fun are you having right now? How much fun is this entire team having right now after this great start?
Yeah, I mean, it's a blast for us. You can't really dream of moments like this because at the end of the day, we're all playing the game that we love. So, we're enjoying the atmosphere and the atmosphere that we travel to as well. So it's been a phenomenal experience. But, we got to this point last year. So where our mindset is just not staying satisfied with what we've done and continuing to climb and just keep on getting better each week.
It's interesting you mentioned the word atmosphere because I wanted to bring up when we spoke to you down at Big 12 Media Day in July down in Dallas or down in Arlington, you had mentioned that last year it just felt different on campus. Like it felt like the football team was maybe getting even a little bit more respect and there was obviously more buzz about the program and it just felt different being a football player in Lawrence. This year, being able to do that again and having the success you guys have had again early in the season for the 2nd year in a row, what is that atmosphere? What is that environment like on campus for you guys these days?
Yeah, like you said, it feels great. And, I think a lot of fans were seeing, it feels like going to be a fluke year for us. And just seeing if we're going to be the same team, if not better. So we really took that challenge head on, that we accepted the pressure that came with it. And, we've got off to an amazing start. But like I said, we go into a lot challenging Big 12 play, and we're excited for the challenge, and we're ready to play ball.
Obviously, you've got some great numbers on the year. We'll talk about some of your individual success, too. But I know you're always a team-first guy, and it's not just you who's carrying the load on the ground for this KU team. You guys have one of the best stables of running backs in the entire country. You've obviously got the big numbers and the star power, but Daniel Highshaw back and healthy. He is obviously having a great start to the year. Dylan McDuffie has been a great addition to this running backs room, and we all know that JD can run the ball a little bit, too. What do you make of this running back stable you guys have? Have you even been impressed a little bit and maybe taken aback by just how successful these guys around you have been?
I'm always impressed, but, at the end of the day, we kind of expected it just because we know what our process was. We know how much work we put in the off season and during camp. So, going into the season, it wasn't a shock to see how many people were in our stable that can just really get out there and just keep things moving and do it at a high level. So it's just been really exciting to see it be at full use, and obviously, knock on wood, we just got to stay healthy and got to keep on going.
Our guest is Devin Neal, running back for the Kansas Jayhawks, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. As the 4-0 Jayhawks prepare to take on Texas this Saturday in Austin. Devin, offense was the key to a lot of your success last season, and certainly that's your side of the ball, and you've seen how that's clicked in, you've got that firsthand knowledge of how things are working there. But I've been really impressed with the improvement on the defensive side of the ball this year. Talk to me about that front seven in particular. You go up against them in practice all the time. What is your impression of the way that your defense has played through 4 weeks and how much that has helped you guys play more complementary football so far?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember who I told, but, all off season I was talking about how much better our defense is going to be. And, even throughout fall camp, they always talked about how much of a chip they had on their shoulders because of how many people doubted them. But no one in this building doubted our defense, and that's the important thing. And we knew what they were going to do. So now just seeing them put on that show in front of the fans and in each game, it just gives us even more confidence as an offense just to know that, not all the pressure is on us to do this whole thing. And like you saw last game, I mean, 2 touchdowns from the defense, that's huge. And that can definitely change the game. So I'm just glad to see how much confidence those dudes have when they're flying around to the ball.
Something that has stood out to me watching your last 3 games as a team, Devin, close games. You had the big lead against Illinois, and Illinois started to whittle it away. Nevada was a tougher game than I think a lot of people were expecting on the scoreboard. And then the BYU game, you go in trailing at halftime. But in all 3 of those games, felt like there was absolutely no panic on your sideline, no panic to you guys. Is that even a little bit different from last year where now you expect to be successful, you expect somebody to go make a play, that you have more confidence and less panic now that you've had success? Is there more confidence this year in those spots?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And, Coach Lightfoot actually mentioned that the other day, and we were talking about just how much we don't panic and how there's just a calm feeling going in at halftime where, there was a point in this program to where, that when that would happen, that it would be over with and there would be no chance we come back in games or stuff like that. So, that's just how much confidence we have in each other that we can come into the locker room, make our adjustments, and, be confident that we're still in this game and we're going to come out on top.
You've got Texas coming up on Saturday, and I know that the cliche is you got to take it one game at a time and you got to treat every opponent the same, and I certainly understand that there is some truth to that as a competitor, but when you have a chance to play a top 5 team in the country in a prime television spot on national TV, do you have a little bit more pep in your step? Is there more excitement to play in these games?
I mean, I think there's always excitement, but, at the end of the day, they're a great ball team, man, and it's probably going to be one of the best teams we've played to date. So it's an exciting challenge for us, but at the end of the day, I've always talked about it. It always depends on our execution. You can't stay too high on these moments or you can't get too low. You got to stay even keel, and that's what I was just mentioning to you. So we can't go into this game with, having a higher expectation because at the end of the day, we got to compete and execute. So that's our mindset for sure.
We've got a few more questions for KU starting running back Devin Neal joining us here on 580 Sports Talk as KU gets ready to take on Texas coming up in a top 25 matchup on Saturday afternoon down in Austin. Devin, I did want to ask about your game specifically for a little bit here. And you, as I mentioned earlier, have had phenomenal stats on the year, over 500 yards of total offense for you so far, and obviously have been a key part of this KU offense for several years. How's the body feeling right now? How you mentioned earlier that it's important for everyone in that running back's room to stay healthy, to keep that momentum going. For you, how are you feeling after the first 4 weeks? Is it just as energized as you were going into week 1? Or are you maybe a little bit grateful that there's now a deeper stable of guys to help you out a little bit?
I would say probably both. My body does feel great, but, at the end of the day, having more guys and taking the load off definitely makes it feel even better. So it's just a great feeling overall. And, just the key is just getting all of us throughout the season healthy. And like I said earlier, knock on wood, just staying healthy, and just getting to the late half of the season and just continue on, stay healthy and just be on the field, because when we're all on the field, it's just really dangerous for defenses. So
I know this summer you talked a lot about, getting everything right with your body and just trying to work on a few things, fine-tune some things going into the season because you've got big expectations for yourself, for this team, and obviously for your future career as well. How well do you think you've done at hitting those benchmarks and hitting those milestones and things you wanted to accomplish or fine-tune or improve on? Do you feel like you've already been able to hit some of those things? Obviously more to go for sure with a lot of season left, but do you feel like you've been able to see some of that progress so far?
Yeah, no doubt. I definitely feel and see the difference, and I think not playing baseball this year definitely helped with that as well. But, I give all my credit to those big fellas up front. Those dudes and I had the same process, and that's why you see such a fantastic ground game with all of our running backs and then those receivers blocking outside. Those dudes got extremely more physical throughout the offseason as well, and they lock up some DBs and safeties out there too. So it's a cumulative effort for sure, and I'm super blessed to be part of this team.
Even with how much it has helped you on the football field, do you ever get just a little feeling in the back of your mind like, dang, I kind of wish I was getting ready for baseball season too?
I think about that every once in a while, but I think I made the right decision, honestly, and I don't ever feel regret about that. But of course, I miss one of my loves of my sports careers. But hitting's fun, of course. But
all right, couple more questions for you, Devin, and we'll let you go. And again, thank you so much for the time. This is one I've been waiting to ask you since this weekend because I have this vivid memory from when Coach Leipold got the job at KU in his first press conference where he said, hey, look, I'm not really flashy. I'm not that kind of guy. But then I'm sitting in the press conference the other day after the win over BYU. He's cracking jokes. He's making everybody laugh in the room and think, I think Coach Leipold sold himself short a little bit here with his personality. So take us into the meeting room, into practice week. What is it like being around Coach Leipold and, your offensive coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki, all the assistants? What's just sort of the energy? What's sort of the vibe around these guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's a family. And obviously there's moments where there's tough love and, the coaches are getting on us. But that comes with it. That's our process. So, Coach Leipold is cracking jokes throughout practice and stuff. He's a loose guy. But he knows when to crank it up and get serious as well. So that's just the balance there is. And I think everyone feels it on the team, just how great of a family this feels.
All All right, last one then, Devin. You're going down to Austin coming up this weekend. Obviously, the game is a big deal. You've been to Austin before. We all remember that game from a couple of years ago, the 57-56 overtime game. I like Austin a lot. I think a lot of people like making the road trip down to Austin, even though this will be the last time KU does so as a conference opponent. But what is your favorite city to go visit in the Big 12 or outside the Big 12? I know you guys were just in Reno a couple weeks ago. What is your favorite road trip to make in conference play?
That's actually a good question. I certainly like Austin. I will say that. I'd probably say last year's trip to Oklahoma was one of my favorites, though.
What was it about Norman that really stuck with you?
So I think we stayed in Oklahoma City, and then drove into Norman the next day. But I like the atmosphere, and it was just a cool trip overall. I mean, we're not there like to travel around the city a lot. So, but for what it's worth, I think it was a good environment.
Devin Neal is the standout star running back for the Kansas Jayhawks. KU will take on Texas coming up 2:30 on Saturday. Devin, we really appreciate you taking the time for us, man. Thank you so much. Congrats on all the success so far this year, and best of luck coming up on Saturday in a big game against Texas.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you.
That's Devin Neal. He is the main man in the backfield for the Kansas Jayhawks, and he joined Brendan and I earlier this week for that conversation. Certainly grateful to Devin for his time. Pretty neat to see somebody who was a local high school standout, a Lawrence High standout, be able to do the things that he has done for the Jayhawks. It's going to be tough sledding for that running game against Texas. That's where my biggest concern is for Kansas on Saturday afternoon at DKR Memorial Stadium is, are they going to be able to run the ball between the tackles? They have done that to great effect so far this season. They certainly have a talented group of running backs. You heard Devin Neal speak to that. But these big boys on the defensive line for Texas are a whole different animal. And if Kansas finds themselves only picking up a couple of yards at a time on those runs between the tackles and they get behind the sticks, that's going to put their offense in a really tough situation. I think that if Texas is able to render Kansas's offense one-dimensional, that's probably the path to the Longhorns covering what is a 16.5-point spread. But if Kansas can run the ball, and I think that Andy Koldenicki's been keeping some stuff in his back pocket for this game, and I think they're going to have to get creative in some spots. But if they are able to get Devin Neal free and have him be productive and have Daniel Highshaw pick up some yards, if they are able to run the ball with a moderate amount of success, even just a moderate amount of success, it's going to make their offense multidimensional, and it might give them a chance to hang around in a shootout. That's going to be their best chance. Like, Kansas didn't win this game 20-17, right? I don't think anybody expects that. Could they win it 38-35? Could they win it 44-41? Could they win it 57-56 in overtime? Stranger things have happened. Maybe not stranger than that. That's about as strange as they get. But certainly, Kansas has a chance. I think to say that they don't have a chance is selling them short, but they got to do a lot of things right. And a lot of them are going to depend on that man that we just heard from, Devin Neal. If he has a big day, that probably will bode really, really well for KU's chances tomorrow afternoon. One more hour to go on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Just me the rest of the way. Brendan's on his way to Rossville to get set up for our Lewis Toyota High School Football Game of the Week tonight, the War on 24, which you'll be able to hear over on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9, with a 7 o'clock kickoff tonight. So it's just me for the final hour. We will get to headlines, big news, and not the good kind of headline for Kansas basketball earlier today. We'll get a Ryder Cup date in. Major League Baseball team fired their manager this afternoon. We'll get to all of that. But our top story, Donald Trump has weighed in on the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift romance. You're going to want to hear what he has to say. That's next. Headlines coming up as we start the next hour, the final hour, 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Final hour of the day, final hour of the week here on 580 Sports Talk. I am Dan Lucero, flying solo for this final hour with Jake LeBon on vacation and Brendan Dworzinski setting up for tonight's Lewis Toyota High School football game of the week, about which more later on this hour. Got a jam-packed final hour for you. We're going to hear from Andy Reid. He spoke to the media earlier today at One Arrowhead Drive after practice. Short remarks from the coach. We'll play him in full and have some final thoughts on their matchup with the Jets on Sunday, as well as a look ahead to some high school football action that we've got coming up in the area tonight, college football, and the pro slate as well. Some final football thoughts this hour, along with the headlines and a final word. Appreciate you hanging out with me on the YouTube stream. Again, youtube.com/@580 Sports Talk. That's the name of the YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk. Search for that on YouTube. You will find us. You can watch us live. You can watch archived editions of the show. You can watch all our video content over there as well. And we do video content, post-game Chiefs reactions. When we're at a game, we do live post-game reactions, KU, K-State, all that good stuff. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you subscribe, then it will go right to your homepage when you go to youtube.com every time. And you won't have to dig to find us. We'll be right there, our smiling faces, every single day with another edition of 580 Sports Talk for you. So appreciate those of you who are hanging out in the YouTube comments. You can leave a comment. Love to hear your thoughts. What football game are you most excited about this weekend? What's your prediction for the Chiefs and the Jets? What's your prediction for KU, Texas? Leave them in the comments. We'll discuss. You can also hit us up on the text line, 785-272-9429. That is the text line, 785-272-9429. Here's a very specific prediction about, I guess not that specific, but in fact, I think it's quite the opposite of specific, but we can certainly guess which direction this listener is leaning with how they think KU Texas is going to go from 785. After this week, KU won't be ranked anymore. They come in 24th in the country, playing the number 3 Texas Longhorns tomorrow in Austin. Again, appreciate your thoughts. Happy to make this a conversational final hour of 580 Sports Talk. We start our 580 Sports Talk headlines as we do every 5 o'clock hour with the big news. Finally, Donald Trump has weighed in on Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's relationship. I know we were all waiting with bated breath. We have heard everybody's thoughts on what is happening with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce has weighed in to the extent that he cares to. Everybody has had, whether it's been jokes or something sincere about it on social media, everybody has weighed in, but we had yet to hear from the 45th president of the United States until today. And this is the quote as relayed by Gary Grumbach, who is a Washington correspondent for NBC News. Again, this is Donald Trump. Quote, "I wish the best for both of them. I hope they enjoy their life. Maybe together, maybe not. Most likely not." End of quote. Damn, man. Like you could have just left it at, "I hope they enjoy their life." You could have just left it there. You know? Why you gotta just swipe? I don't understand that. Come on, Donald. Be better. Be best. Follow your wife's lead. Be best. Maybe together, maybe not. Most likely not. That is the thought. Donald Trump has weighed in on the Taylor Swift-Travis Kelce relationship. I know you were all dying to know what the former president thought about that. I will let you know if we hear from Clinton or Obama or Biden, any of our other living presidents, or George W. Bush. I will let you know if the other living presidents weigh in. I have a feeling they will not. I think we only have one former president who loves reading the tabloids that much, and I think we've heard from that one. So that is probably the last presidential comment we will get on the Taylor Swift-Travis Kelce relationship, unless they get engaged. Like, if this is the real deal and it goes all the way to an engagement, whoever the sitting president is at that time will absolutely be asked about it. So anyhow, I wanted to start with something lighthearted because the next headline we're going to get into is not that. And we will go ahead and just give you the plain facts as they've been reported by Myerberg Metcalf of ESPN. Arterio Morris has been dismissed from the Kansas men's basketball team after he was arrested and charged with rape. Morris was arrested Friday by the Douglas County Sheriff's Office on a charge of rape with circumstances unknown. That is, of course, a felony charge. The bond for Morris was set at $75,000 when he was booked into jail and was no longer in custody as of Friday morning. Last month, an 18-year-old woman from Missouri reported an alleged rape in the men's basketball dorm. Although he was not mentioned in an incident report that was made in mid-September, the Kansas City Star reported that Morris was the subject of that investigation, and he had been suspended by the school in mid-September and now has been removed from the team following his arrest. A statement from head coach Bill Self: when we learned of allegations regarding Arterio Morris, he was suspended from the Kansas men's basketball program. We are now aware he has been arrested and charged, and he was dismissed from the program. As this is an ongoing legal matter, we are not able to comment further at this time. A lot of people get second chances in life, and they get second chances in life for reasons that are beyond like general humanity. A lot of people get second chances in life because they're good at sports. And just lay it out like that. That is a fact of life. We are all aware of it. People get second chances because they can run really fast, like Tyreek Hill, or they can throw a baseball really fast, like Julio Urias of the Los Angeles Dodgers, or because they're a 5-star basketball recruit and they might be the missing piece to try and get back to a national championship level, like Arterio Morris was for this Kansas basketball team. The previous allegations against Arterio Morris had been pled down after he was arrested last summer, prior to him attending the University of Texas, where he had transferred from. He had been accused of assault by an ex-girlfriend and had entered a plea deal which canceled a trial that had been scheduled for October for the charge of misdemeanor assault. So I don't actually know if he pled that down. I'm not looking at the full details of that, but there was a previous accusation of domestic assault. And that was on Arterio Morris's record, and the details were out there for anybody to see. And Bill Self and the Kansas basketball program and the athletic department decided anyway that they would stick their neck out for him. And every time this happens, and I'm not saying this is specific to Kansas or specific to sports or one sport or another, but every time this happens, you always hear the platitudes, right? You hear coaches say, you met with the player and they understand that they've made a mistake and they understand that this is a second chance and all of that. The idea is to make themselves, and by proxy, everybody who follows the team, everybody who roots for the team, you're supposed to feel comfortable with the idea of this person getting a second chance. And a lot of people get those second chances. And some people manage to do well with their second chances, regardless of whether you think they deserve them in the first place or not. But when somebody gets a second chance and this is what they choose to do with it, it's a gut punch. And it reflects extremely poorly on not just the person who made the mistake, committed the alleged crime, but the people who brought them into the atmosphere, the team environment, brought them onto the team, brought them into the community, brought them, in this case, into the university, and vouched for their character. And that ended up being worth nothing. Any statement Bill Self might have made ended up worth less than the paper it got printed on when it was transcribed, when it came to Arterio Morris, because this is what he did with his second chance. And he's not the only one. I mentioned Julio Urias a little bit earlier. the Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher whose career currently sits on the brink after previously having been suspended after a domestic battery investigation. This season, as the opening day starter for the Dodgers and one of their most reliable starting pitchers, he was placed earlier this month on administrative leave because he was involved again in domestic violence. And more so than any other crime, well, I shouldn't say more so. I shouldn't say anything when we're talking about this. This is all pretty delicate stuff. And I want to make sure that if I say anything, I've got a statistic or something that I'm looking right at to back it up. But I do know this, that there is a large rate of, I want to make sure again that I get the words right here, that there is a large rate of recidivism among people who commit crimes against women, crimes against domestic partners. That if that's something you do once, you're fairly likely to do that again. And that is alleged to be true for Julio Urias of the Dodgers. That is alleged to be true now for Arterio Morris. And I hope that there is shame and embarrassment in the KU basketball program today, not just because Arterio Morris has been charged with this and they had to remove him from the team. I mean, there's the egg on your face element, but there's also this. You knew what Arterio Morris had been accused of and was capable of when you brought him to your campus. And when you brought him to campus, indirectly or not, you put other people in danger of his behavior because you knew what he was capable of and you brought him to campus anyway. And that's what I hope that everybody involved with the Kansas basketball program is feeling today. That I hope they feel that embarrassment. I hope they feel that hurt. I hope that they feel responsible that what is alleged to have happened. Because they created the conditions for that by bringing that person to campus. Some people aren't worthy of the second chances they're given. At the end of the day, that's just a fact. There are some people who are. There are some people who, when given a second chance, they better themselves. They learn from their mistakes. You don't have to be the same person you were when you make a mistake the first time. You can learn. You can get better. You can make a good life. You can make a good showing for yourself. Some people aren't worth the second chance. And it seems pretty obvious today that Arterio Morris was not worth the second chance. So he is no longer a part of the Kansas basketball program. All right, let's move on. Let's keep it moving here in our 580 Sports Talk headlines. That's not a fun one to talk about, and I always hope that I handle those with the sensitivity, with the respect that they deserve. Personally, you think about the alleged victim, and you just hope that she is able to again feel safe and feel cared for and feel loved on that campus, because that is what she and every other student deserves. And Arterio Morris is alleged to have taken that from her, and that sucks. And that's KU basketball's fault. That sucks. And I hope that she, because that goes a lot of different ways. When you make an allegation against an athlete for sexual assault, there are all kinds of stories. They are too legion to list here. Some of them have incredibly tragic endings. Google Lizzie Seberg at Notre Dame. That's a story that deserves more time to tell than I can give it here. But there are tragic endings to those stories when you accuse a star athlete of a crime like that, of a sexual crime, of an assault. I hope that the accuser in this case is treated with respect and with care and feels that on that campus. It's the absolute least that she deserves to have her humanity recognized when it was not, allegedly, by Arterio Morris. Let's get to some more trivial stuff, but this is important stuff too, is in our world of sports as we return to the toy department here. NFL Week 4 action coming up this weekend. Let's go to the injury reports as they have been released by every team. The participation report for Sunday Night Football is out, and for the second straight week, as we have alluded to throughout today's show, the Chiefs will be without linebacker Nick Bolton, who did not practice all week as he works through an ankle injury. He is ruled out for Sunday's game, as is cornerback Jalen Watson, who's dealing with a shoulder injury that cropped up during the week in practice. So no Bolton at linebacker. That means Drew Tranquil will get the start at middle linebacker, wear the green dot and the wireless communication in his helmet for this coming week. Jalen Watson also out for the Chiefs. No one else has an injury designation. Everybody else will be good to go. That includes Noah Gray, who's been sick all week and did not practice, but the expectation is that he will be ready to go on Sunday night. Chris Jones was limited. So was Donovan Smith. So was Kadarius Toney, but none of those players, again, have an injury designation. So the expectation is that they will be full go. For the New York Jets, safety Tony Adams is out with a hamstring injury. Guard Wes Schweitzer is out with a concussion. Tackle Mekhi Becton, running back Breece Hall, and kicker Greg Zuerlein are all questionable despite participating in practice fully on Friday. Looking at some other significant injuries, we'll go game by game, which is kind of what we've been doing of late here on this segment on the 580 Sports Talk headlines. Jaguars will be without safety Antonio Johnson, wide receiver Zay Jones, and linebacker Devin Lloyd in their game in London against the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons have wide receiver Josh Ali ruled out. Cordero Patterson is questionable with a thigh injury. Bengals will be without their punt returner, Charlie Jones. He didn't practice. He's got a thumb injury. Backup tight end Irv Smith also out for the Bengals. Joe Burrow participated in full in practice. No injury designation for the Bengals starting quarterback. Their opponents, the Titans, will be missing tackle Peter Skoronski again. He's out with that abdomen injury. Wide receiver Treylon Burks out with a knee. A couple of important defensive linemen, Danico Autry and Tier Tart, are questionable. The Denver Broncos will be missing defensive tackle Mike Purcell, linebacker Josie Jewell, and linebacker Frank Clark when they play the Bears in the dumpster juice game of the week. I don't know how that became a preferred saying on this radio program, but I'm just going to roll with it. It's the dumpster juice game, maybe of the century in the NFL, the Broncos and the Bears, unless it's Bears Commanders on Thursday Night Football. That's going to suck too. No Clark, no Jewell, no Purcell for the Broncos. Justin Simmons, their star safety, is questionable. Bears will be without Eddie Jackson, Jalen Johnson, and Josh Blackwell in their secondary. Broncos country, let's ride. I think they're going to win that game because they're bad, but I think they try. I don't think the Bears are trying. I just think they're miserable. Ravens, Browns. Again, the Ravens injury report continues to be lengthy. They're missing two wide receivers, Rashad Bateman and Odell Beckham Jr. They're both out. Marlon Humphrey remains out. David Ojabo and Odafe Owe, pass rushers, both out. Tyler Linderbaum, their center, is questionable. Ronnie Stanley is doubtful at tackle. Marcus Williams, safety, is questionable. Kyle Hamilton, safety, questionable. Justice Hill is questionable. It's a bad injury report for the Ravens as they go on the road to face that nasty Browns defense. Deshaun Watson has a right shoulder injury, was limited in practice all week. He is listed as questionable. The coach of the Browns, Kevin Stefanski, says he does expect Watson to be able to play, but he could be limited. Rams and Colts. Rams have tight end Tyler Higbee and wide receiver Ben Skoranek both questionable, and tackle Alaric Jackson questionable as well. Colts will be without center Ryan Kelly, who is not yet ready to return from his concussion, but quarterback Anthony Richardson is back. He was a full participant in practice today. He will get the start after missing last week. For the Commanders and the Eagles, not much to report. Eagles will be without wide receiver Quez Watkins and safety Sidney Brown, but otherwise both teams relatively healthy going into that NFC West showdown. Vikings and the Panthers. Bryce Young, no injury designation. That means he should be good to return after a 1-week absence at quarterback for the Panthers. They'll be without safety Xavier Woods, who's out with a hamstring injury. Vikings without starting safety Lewis Seen, who will miss the game with a hamstring. Dolphins, Bills. No Jalen Phillips for the Dolphins. That's a big miss. He's one of their best pass rushers, maybe their best. He will miss the game with an oblique injury. Teron Armstead, starting left tackle, is questionable for the Finns. So is center Connor Williams. Bills have only one player ruled out, but it's a big miss for them. Starting safety Jordan Poyer out with a knee injury. Steelers need a punter. You don't often see the punter turn up on the injury list, but Presley Harvin has a right hamstring injury, and he is out for their game in Houston against the Texans. Texans will be missing Laramie Tunsil, their starting left tackle, also cornerback Tavier Thomas, and linebacker Denzel Perryman, and guard Josh Jones. They are all listed as out for Houston. Buccaneers have 4 players listed as out. Rookie defensive tackle Kalijah Cansey, the biggest name. Cornerbacks Jamel Dean and Derrick Pitts will both miss the game against the Saints, as will linebacker Servassier Dennis. Saints will be without cornerback Paulson Adebo, starting guard Cesar Ruiz as well. Raiders Chargers just can't get healthy. They are going to be without Corey Linsley. He has fallen ill and will not play, and I am hearing rumors that might be an injured reserve type of illness. But Corey Linsley, starting center, he is out for the Chargers. Austin Eckler, doubtful. Derwin James, doubtful. Joey Bosa, questionable, but did not participate in practice today. As for the Raiders, their only miss is Curtis Bolton, the linebacker. He's out with a knee. Max Crosby, Jimmy Garoppolo, both listed as questionable. For Patriots-Cowboys, nobody out for the Pats. Jonathan Jones is questionable at cornerback. 2 starting defensive tackles, Christian Barmore and Devon Godshaw, are both questionable. So is starting guard Cole Strange. Cowboys will be without tackle Tyron Smith. He'll miss with a knee injury. Guard Zach Martin and center Tyler Biadasz are both questionable. So that offensive line for the Cowboys has taken a beating early on. Cardinals 49ers. Cardinals will be without linebacker Josh Woods, defensive end Jonathan Ledbetter. They are both out with injuries. Hollywood Brown questionable with a thumb injury. For the Niners, wide receiver Juwan Jennings is doubtful with a shin injury. Deebo Samuel questionable with rib and knee injuries. Dre Greenlaw questionable with an ankle injury. That's that on that. That's your NFL injury report. Not much significant in the way of fantasy football, I suppose. Although if you're a Deebo Samuel owner, that's good news. If you're Austin Eckler, you're going to have to wait till Sunday to know for sure on that. Continuing with our 580 Sports Talk headlines, 2 more I want to get to. 1, I am not quite the golf sicko that our friend and co-host Jake LeBon is, but I have become more of one as the years go by. I am so much of one, in fact, that I was up at 12:30 watching the opening tee shots of the 2023 Ryder Cup at Marco Simone Golf Club in Rome. The Ryder Cup, day 1 of 3 was today, and it's over. It's over. Europe, 6.5. U.S., 1.5. The Europeans swept foursomes in the morning. In 4-ball, it looked like the United States were going to take 3 of a possible 4 points and maybe make it competitive, but all 3 of the foursomes that finished, or the 4-ball groups that finished, absolutely piddled down their legs. John Rahm made 2 eagles in the last 3 holes. Victor Hovland and Justin Rose each made clutch putts on the 18th in their particular matches. So instead of 3 points, the United States had to settle for 1.5 points in the afternoon 4-ball sessions. 6.5 to 1.5. The Ryder Cup, functionally, competitively, is pretty much over, which is a bummer because I like the Ryder Cup. And I was hoping that maybe this would be the year that the United States would win in Europe for the first time in 30 years. It will not be the year. It will not be the year. Captain Zach Johnson, who, as an Iowa Hawkeye, knows a little something about disappointing scoring totals, said after day 1 that despite what the scoreboard says, he's still proud of his team, which is the kind of thing I like to hear when I play T-ball, but not, in the Ryder Cup. Also, there's a suggestion that some of the Team USA players have been dealing with illness. There are rumors and rumblings that some of it might be COVID. That's not great, but I've had COVID, and I don't think that made me poop my pants like Team USA did on the 18th hole in 4-ball. And that's all I've got to say about that. One final headline, a quick one to get to from Major League Baseball. The San Francisco Giants fired Gabe Kapler as their manager. He does not get to complete his 4th season on the job. The Giants were not a good team on paper, and they are 78-81 on the season. So they were about what everybody kind of thought they would be, but somebody's head had to roll, and I guess it's Gabe Kapler who will take the fall for that. Kapler managed the Giants to essentially 500 ball in 3 of his 4 seasons. In 2021, somehow the Giants won 107 games. That is one of the all-time fluke seasons in the history of baseball. I will never be able to understand how all of their mid-30s guys had career years at the exact same time. That's wild. And that's why the last 2 years have felt like an embarrassment for the Giants. But the truth be told, this is about what the Giants have been, a pretty middling 500 ball club. It's how they're built. It's what their roster says they got to be, the talent level. And I'm a little surprised that Gabe Kapler took the fall, particularly with 3 games left in the season. But again, sometimes you got to have a fall guy, and Gabe Kapler is the fall guy in San Francisco. That'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We're going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we'll hear from Andy Reid. Didn't have a lot to say, but we'll hear what Big Red said after practice today at One Arrowhead Drive. That's coming up. You're listening to 580 Sports Talk. .34 here on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero hanging out with you. We'll get to your predictions for this weekend's football games coming up next segment. Chiefs, Jets, KU, Texas. Any other big ones in the area you want to predict? Any other big ones around college or pro football you want to predict? If you're going to a high school game tonight, let us know where you're headed. Text us, 785-272-9429. We got the War on 24 coming your way tonight on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9. Rossville hosting Silver Lake. And I don't love how unseasonably warm it has been this fall, but I do love it for Brendan Dworzinski, Greg Akagi, and myself, particularly the first two, because they're on the broadcast. And Rossville's press box just isn't quite big enough for a radio broadcast crew, so they're going to be up on the roof. And I've done a game on the roof in Rossville when it was bitter cold and winds gusting to 30 miles an hour. And that wasn't a lot of fun, but it's not going to do that tonight. So that is one thing to be grateful for with regards to the unseasonable heat we are feeling here in Northeast Kansas. Rossville Silver Lake tonight, our Lewis Toyota high school football game of the week on Classic Country 106.9, pregame 6:45, kickoff at 7. Promised you Andy Reid, head coach of the Chiefs. We heard from him earlier today after practice. Brief comments from Big Red. Let's hear what he had to say.
Really didn't practice today were Bolton and Watson, Jalen Watson. He has a shoulder strain, and we'll just see. Most likely he'll be out along with Bolton. Look forward to the challenge of playing the Jets. Guys have had a good week of practice, and they understand the talent on that football team. So they really worked hard to get themselves ready. Anyways, with that, time's yours.
with Nick, Drew has popped in, done pretty well for him. You expect even more from Drew, getting to be the green dot for 2 weeks in a row. I'm keeping everyone in line.
Yeah, so he did good last week, and he's been doing it a while. So I mean, you're going to get a good day's work, and then we'll see how things fall. But he works extremely hard at his job, and I think every snap he gets, he becomes more familiar with it. So
we asked Spags this, and he had kind of a funny answer. We've been a few times here, almost got Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes. It just hasn't happened for some reason. As a football guy and an offensive guy, would you have liked to have seen that matchup at some point in these last few times you guys have had a chance to have that work and it just hasn't yet?
Well, listen, I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan, but I like the kid that they have, and I know Aaron's been helping out with him, and so we try to work hard at making sure we've got that part taken care of. So, but that, that's where I'm at. I haven't really thought about the other part of that because we're trying to get ready for the guys that are there right now. So,
is the expectation that Noah Gray will be able to go?
Yeah, he'll be able to go. He practiced today. Yeah.
And with the offense, the way it was running, especially with the running backs. I know Patrick has said how it kind of helped eases the blow against the zone defense. You foresee more of that coming along, just trying to get them more involved in the rhythm of the game and that you seem to have established in the last game of Chicago.
Yeah, we try to do what's best as things go. We always have runs built in there, so it's not all passes, and we understand the importance of it. I mean, so they'll be mixed in there again. We'll just see how it goes. Yeah.
Kind of a little bit off the field, but a lot of new fans have been acquired this whole week with the Chiefs. What's your message to the new Chiefs fans that have been acquired this past week?
Yeah, well, it's a great venue, and we appreciate everything. That's a good thing. That's about what I can give you. Right.
That is Andy Reid. No patience at this point for the new Chiefs fans, the Swiftie/Chiefs fans, I suppose. At least no thought given to them on a game day Friday, and I get it. This is the time of the week where you're pretty locked in, and there's certainly been some instances in Monday press conferences, especially off of wins, where we've heard Andy Reid willing to have some fun. Friday press conferences are not for the fun. They're not for the jokes. They're not for the off-the-field stuff. They are for football, because you better be all about your business when you're getting set to go on the road and play an NFL game in prime time. And the Chiefs certainly seem to be. Interesting also to note that he said that Noah Gray practiced today, where the participation report indicated that he didn't. At least the one on NFL.com indicated that he didn't. So maybe some crossed wires there, but good news that the Chiefs will have their full complement of tight ends for Sunday, especially if they want to run the ball effectively late in the game. I think they're going to jump out to a pretty sizable lead, and I just don't see the Jets able to keep up. Even if the Jets limit the Chiefs, and I predicted 23-10 Chiefs at the top of the show. And I think that's I'm giving some regard to a Jets defense. It hasn't played great this year, but they've been good in the red zone. And I think they might force the Chiefs to try some field goals rather than finishing drives in the end zone. But even if the Jets defense plays at that level, unless they force some turnovers in plus territory, I just don't know how the Jets are going to score. I don't see how it happens. They're going to try and hit on some big plays, but Zach Wilson, not really reliable. And if you put pressure on him, he's going to get skittish, and he's not going to be accurate with those deep balls. It doesn't matter how good Garrett Wilson is. You can't get him the ball. I forgot about the McCole Hardman revenge factor before today. Like, oh, yeah, that guy's on the Jets. I wonder if he'll be active. I wonder if they'll try and get him the ball, get him on a jet sweep that goes for 2 yards. Chiefs fans are familiar with those. We'll see if it's a McCole Hardman revenge game after all. That'd be something. That's an outcome, frankly, that I haven't spent much time considering. I think it's going to be all Chiefs, 23-10. We do have some predictions on the YouTube comments Mark says Chiefs 28-13. That's very similar to Brendan's prediction. He's got 27-13 Chiefs. So 4 touchdowns for Mark is the prediction there. Vance has 27-10 Chiefs over Jets on the YouTube comments. You can weigh in the YouTube stream, and you can also weigh in on the text line, 785-272-9429. We'll get some final thoughts on KU, Texas, some look ahead to some high school football in the area tonight, and some final thoughts on Chiefs Jets as well. Your predictions still welcome. We'll get to those. We'll take this break. We'll come back with more 580 Sports Talk after this. .544 on 580 Sports Talk. We're rounding third and heading for home on the day and the week. I'm Dan Lucero, chilling with you the rest of the way. We'll have some 580 Sports Talk overtime as well. We'll re-rack our conversation from earlier today with our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick, as we lead you up to Royals baseball. Royals-Yankees. The Royals are plenty used to playing out the string in the final weekend of the season. The Yankees are not, but that's what they're doing, as they have been eliminated from the playoff conversation in the American League. First pitch tonight, 7:10. Jordan Lyles on the mound for the Royals. So if you're headed to the K and you're seated in the outfield, bring your glove, because it's souvenir day when Jordan Lyles pitches. Carlos Rodon, left-hander, on the mound for the Bronx Bombers. We'll hand it off to pregame coverage at 6:30. It's our final Friday night overtime for Royals baseball this season. And as Mark points out in the YouTube comments, at least the Royals will be done by the time the Chiefs play on Sunday night. And not just done for the day, which they will be. They'll be done. You won't have to think about them for 6 months if you'd like, because the season will be over. High school football in the area this weekend. There was a game last night. You heard it here on 580 WIBW, Lewis Toyota Thursday Night Football. Rough one for the Chargers of Topeka West as they fell to Lansing 84-14. West is 0-5. Lansing is 3-2. Tonight, only 2 games in the city limits, which is wild. A lot of road games tonight. One team that's at home is Hayden. They're looking to go to 5-0. They've got Perry Lecompton in town for a 3A District 4 contest. Perry Lecompton just 1-3. Hayden will be heavily favored in that one. Topeka High is also at home tonight at Hummer Sports Park. Wichita Northwest is coming to town. They're a really good team. They lost last week to Wichita East. Maybe you saw it because the highlight went viral. East was lining up for a game-winning field goal. They had trouble with the snap, so the holder picked it up and just ran around left end 30 yards, and nobody caught him, and he scored the game-winning touchdown with no time left. Incredible finish. I mean, Hollywood would reject that finish. So that's how Wichita Northwest lost their first game of the year. And East is good. They played Washburn Rural as tough as anybody's played Washburn Rural this season. So not a bad loss for the Grizzlies. They're still one of 6A's best. And the Trojans, coming off a win last week over Emporia, they're going to have their hands full tonight at Hummer Sports Park. Everyone else is on the road. Well, no, I'm sorry. Care Perryville Latin's at home. I'm sorry. I saw the note that they were at somewhere, and they're playing their home game at Highland Park Field, at the Highland Parks Field tonight. So they are at home as well. My apologies to the Lions, who are 2-2. They host Burlingame tonight. That'll be a good game. Burlingame is 4-0. Washburn Rural, let's try that again in English. Washburn Rural, they are on the road. They're at Junction City. You thought Washburn Rural could breathe easy after they got through Manhattan last week. No, sir. Junction City's awfully good. 3-1 on the year. Rural, of course, a perfect 4-0. Highland Park's on the road in Meadowlark. No, not in Meadowlark Conference. I am all over the place today with this high school football preview. My apologies. Highland Park is on the road. Non-league action. They play Lincoln Prep from Kansas City, who is 4-1. That's a good team. Seaman is also playing a Missouri team tonight. They play Blair Oaks, who is out of Jefferson City. They're 4-1 on the year and a dominant 4-1. According to Rick Peterson's preview from TopSports.news, Blair Oaks has outscored their opponents 252-93 in 5 games. Seaman is 2-2, and they're trying to get back on the winning track. Shawnee Heights on the road at DeSoto. Heights trying to bounce back from their unexpected loss to Baser Linwood last week against a good DeSoto team. That should be a very good game in DeSoto tonight. And, of course, there's our Lewis Toyota High School Game of the Week. You'll hear it over on Classic Country 106.9. It's the War on 24. 3-1 Silver Lake at 2-2 Rossville. I can't wait. I got the chance to broadcast that game. I think it was back in 2016. I was on the call of that one. I haven't been able to get back to it since, so I'm excited to be there, be the sideline reporter for tonight's broadcast. Brandon Brzezinski, Greg Akagi on the call. Excited to be a part of it because I think it's the best rivalry in the state. I really sincerely do. There are some good ones in the area, certainly some really good ones. Like Shawnee Heights Seaman is great, but Silver Lake Rossville, man, that's where it's at. You don't get a cool nickname if it's not a great rivalry. And the War on 24 is a damn cool nickname. So excited to be part of the broadcast tonight. 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock kick over on Classic Country 106.9. K-State's off. KU's not. They're on the road. They're at Texas. They are 16.5-point underdogs against the Longhorns. I think Texas wins. I don't know that they'll cover that number, but I do think they'll win by about 2 scores. Something like 35-21 feels about right to me. I just think it's going to be a struggle for Kansas to be multidimensional offensively. I think Texas is going to do a good job to take away their run, and they're going to hit for some explosives with their wide receivers. Got some other picks from the YouTube comments. Mark thinks Texas wins but doesn't cover, 42-27. Vance thinks Texas wins and covers, 41-24. It'd be a narrow cover. It'd be a sweat if you were on Texas minus 16.5. Text line, 785 texter. Texas. KU loses, but I think it's a lot closer than people think. I would be more shocked if Texas won by 30 than if Kansas lost by 4. I think it's possible they lose in overtime and stay ranked in the top 25. Well, we have seen them go to overtime in Austin in recent memory. I think I'm with you, Texter. I think that's a good take. I think I would be more surprised if Texas does what they did to Kansas last year when Jalen Daniels was essentially a shell of himself in that game, and they just ran away and hid in the first half. I don't think that's going to happen. It could. I don't think that's as likely as a game that is closer than the spread, that Kansas is able to get creative, maybe hit some trick plays, and get a couple of turnovers, which they've been able to force quite often these first 4 games, and they hang in there into the fourth quarter. I kind of think it's Texas tacking on late to win. Like I said, 35-21 feels about right to me. 14 points, a late touchdown to allow Texas to put the distance between them and KU. But I do think that KU will not be as prolific offensively as they've been, because it will be harder to run the ball against Texas than it has been against any of their other opponents. It's one of the biggest games on the docket. It's not a hugely inspiring college football slate. Ole Miss LSU could be good. Duke Notre Dame, I think, has a chance to be good, though I do think Notre Dame covers that 5.5 point spread. I'll be checking out USC Colorado. USC is going to score as many as they want. The question is, are they going to be focused enough on defense to keep Colorado from keeping pace? Because they were not focused on defense against Arizona State last week, and Colorado's better than Arizona State. Colorado can score. Shadur Sanders is the real thing. If they don't pressure him, Colorado will get in the end zone. They'll be at home. They'll be charged up. It's a 9 a.m. kick Pacific time, so USC might come out a little logy, a little groggy maybe. But I think in the end, it's just too much Caleb Williams and not enough in the trenches for Colorado. It's funny. Everything that we thought about Colorado going into the year, they're too small. They're not going to be very good in the trenches. They're not going to have enough depth. All that stuff ended up being true. And they still got more wins than a lot of people thought they were going to get anyway. And that's because their high-end talent was better than we were willing to give it credit for. And Sean Lewis was a better offensive coordinator than we realized. And I'm royal we, the collective here. They're going to be fun to watch, and it's going to be a great crowd at Folsom Field. And Coach Prime says half the NBA is going to be there, which, again, is a very funny visual. Just a whole ring around the stadium of NBA players. Tyler Hero standing next to Keon Johnson, standing next to Christian Brown. And I bet he'll be there. Christian Brown might actually be there. Not a long drive. It's going to be a fun football weekend. I am looking forward to taking part in it from my couch, and I hope you do the same. We're going to take one final break, come back, wrap up with the final word here on 580 Sports Talk. Wrap it up, walking off with the final word on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. If you're a broadcaster and you're doing a game that ends up a blowout, and it doesn't matter what level of broadcasting you do, you will run into a blowout. You hope you have enough material. The greatest blessing ever for Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson last week when they had the Chiefs-Bears broadcast is that they had 5 feet 11 inches and 12 Grammys worth of blowout material sitting in a suite at Arrowhead Stadium that they could talk about while the Chiefs laid waste to the Bears. The game was bad, but the Taylor Swift comments, they were quite good, and some of them were even funny. And with Taylor Swift expected to be in attendance on Sunday, Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth have that gift if they need it. And I have a hunch that they will be much happier to talk about Taylor Swift in the third and fourth quarter on Sunday night than they will to talk about Zach Wilson having another miserable night against a defense I believe is borderline elite in the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be a very, very long night for the embattled Jets quarterback, and I think the Chiefs are going to win handily. Even if they don't pull away, even if they don't win by a big number, I don't think it's ever going to be in doubt. We got some overtime coming up next. Remember, Lewis Toyota High School Football Game of the Week over on Classic Country 106.9 at 7. Join us for that. For Brendan Dworzinski, I'm Dan Lucero. This has been 580 Sports Talk. Have a great weekend.